In a world where everyone uses magic in their daily lives, we see a ridiculously strong boy in the forest. His name is Mash, and his existence defies the natural order in the world. He lives in a hut with his father Burndead, where they enjoy their lives in isolation. When Mash goes home, he ends up breaking the door, forgetting if it was a push or pull. This makes Burndead upset, but Mash apologizes, promising to fix it. He tries to put it back, but he just pounds it against the door frame, making the damage even worse. After that, they have tea together, and we learn that Mash is different from other people, because he can't use magic, so Burndead has been trying to make his body stronger to make up for it. But Mash doesn't know this, so he continues to wonder why his training is purely physical. Burndead heads out, but warns Mash not to venture into the city while he's gone, but after his father leaves, he immediately runs to the city wearing a cloak, wanting to try a limited edition cream puff from the bakery. He walks around the city, where he sees the people using magic, but he thinks that it's nothing special, because the things they do with magic can also be done with their hands. Mash reaches the bakery and becomes excited, ordering some cream puffs. But as he pays, all the coins are bent, because he had clenched his fist when he had gotten too excited. But the baker thinks that the coins shouldn't be bent so easily. Mash fixes them up, straightening them to their original form, and the baker freaks out. After a while, Mash gets his food, but the winds blow, revealing his face to the public, and everyone is surprised because he doesn't have any marks on his face. Meanwhile, we see an officer named Brad at the police station. He reads a newspaper about this year's Divine Visionary, a title given to the top student of the Magic Academy, which also comes with a number of promotions and rewards. The phone rings, and he is informed about a man walking around the city with no mark on his face. As Mash walks around the streets, he wonders why everyone is staring at him, but he just eats his cream puffs. He bumps into a drunk officer named Terry, messing up his uniform with some of the cream and making him upset. Terry knocks the food off his hands as he continues to run his mouth. Mash rips off the officer's uniform, but he actually has good intentions, telling Terry that he will wash it up for him. At that moment, Brad arrives, asking Terry why he's naked. He looks at Mash, thinking that he is the man mentioned in the report, so he approaches him, but Burndead arrives, grabbing his son and running away. While Brad summons a magical bird to go after them. When they return home, Burndead scolds his son for going into the city despite his warning. Burndead forgives him in the end, but he punishes Mash by making him repeat his workout routine. As Mash leaves the house to train, Burndead thinks that Mash is actually a good kid, and he can't blame him for wanting to go to the city, because he has spent his entire life hiding in the forest. Burndead thinks about how to deal with the police when he sees Brad's bird watching him from his window. Brad suddenly arrives with his men, asking Burndead where his son is. We see Mash training in the woods, lifting the weight like it's nothing, and completing his workout in 5 minutes. He heads back home, but just as he is about to open the door, he hears Brad as he explains that magic has flourished, because they have gotten rid of all the people who can't use magic, calling it a necessary sacrifice for a better world. Brad pushes Burndead, telling him that sheltering the unmarked is a serious offense, but Burndead refuses to tell them about his son's whereabouts. In a flashback, we learn that Burndead has always been treated as a failure in everything that he does. This goes on until adulthood, and he thinks about taking his own life, when suddenly, he hears a baby Mash crying. He realizes that the baby was abandoned because he had no mark, thinking that they are both unwanted by society, so he decides to raise the baby as his own. Back in the present, Burndead screams at Mash to run, so Brad starts beating him up. But just as he is about to finish him off, Mash bursts through the door, hitting one of the officers, and blowing him away. Terry goes to him, but Mash rips his uniform off, slapping him repeatedly until he falls to the ground. Mash reveals that he didn't run because Burndead is his only family, but Brad laughs at him, thinking that he has no chance because he can't use magic. He attacks Mash with the spell he used to drive away a dragon, but Mash easily deflects it with one hand, and Brad can't believe his eyes. He follows up with an even stronger spell, but Mash slaps it away, causing it to explode elsewhere. Terry continues to attack Mash with his magic, while Mash deflects his attacks, and it looks like he's having fun. He takes his father's wand, while Brad defends himself with a barrier, thinking Mash is about to use magic, but Mash throws the wand at Brad, breaking his barrier and causing him to fall to his knees. Mash threatens to kill him the next time he threatens his family, but Brad proposes a deal where Mash will enroll in a magic academy and become a divine visionary so that society will accept him, saying that he will back Mash up because he wants the reward that comes with it. He claims that if they don't accept his deal, they'll be hunted down for the rest of their lives, so Mash agrees to the deal. Mash goes to the prestigious Easton Magic Academy with a fake mark on his face, where he will take the entrance exam that is notoriously difficult, with a passing rate of less than 3%. A man named Lucci looks at the applicants gathered on the field, recognizing some of their faces, when he suddenly hears a loud noise, and he sees Mash lifting weights like it's paper, making him confused because that is not the place for him to work out. Lucci calms himself down, looking at the field again, where he sees Mash reading a fitness book while doing the invisible chair, and he even notices Brad and Bernadette behind him, who are trying to keep an eye on Mash. Lucci appears with style, announcing that he will oversee the exam. The students are stunned, because they recognize him as an extremely gifted mage. Lucci is flattered, but Mash comments on his unnecessarily flashy entrance, making Lucci want to fail him. Lucci announces that the first exam is about to begin, ordering everyone to take a seat, as he uses a spell to prepare the venue for everyone, making everyone amazed. But Mash is not impressed, telling him that he could have just taken them to a room where everything was already prepared, and this makes Lucci hate him even more. The exam begins, as the applicants check their papers, but the questions move around the page, making it difficult to read. We learn that Lucci enchanted the papers with magic, so they need to dispel the magic to pass the test. Brad and Bernadette think Mash is doomed, but Mash orders the words to stop moving around, as he crushes his pen, causing the words to arrange themselves out of fear. He finishes the test early, and Lucci is surprised to see that everything is so perfectly aligned. Mash continues to use his superhuman abilities to pass the other parts of the exam, making everyone surprised, while Lucci thinks of a way to eliminate him. Lucci causes a maze to appear from the ground, giving the examinees 30 minutes to reach the goal. A girl named Lemon approaches Mash, wanting to tag along with him, so they start walking together, but she keeps on falling for the traps, and Mash realizes that she is useless. While his back is turned, she uses a spell to restrain him with cuffs, telling him that there is a reason why she needs to keep him away from the goal. But Mash easily breaks free and dashes off, because he also has his reasons to pass the test. After he leaves, a creature approaches Lemon, asking her a riddle, but she fails to answer it, so it attacks her, but Mash punches the creature, knocking it out with a single punch. Lemon wonders why he saved her, and Mash explains that they must be there for a similar reason, so he feels sorry for her. She is worried that they won't be able to complete the maze in time, but Mash has a plan. Meanwhile, Lucci is confident that Mash is going to fail, but the ground suddenly starts shaking as they hear loud noises. The wall breaks as Mash joins them, and we learn that he just destroyed the maze to create a path. The other successful examinees call him a cheater, telling him to go home, but Lemon tells them that it wasn't Mash's fault, confessing that Lucci promised to get her into the school if she stopped Mash. Lucci admits to this, saying that he doesn't like Mash, as he unleashes his magical powers. He tells them that he will fail Mash, and Lemon, asking them if they want to challenge his decision. But Mash crushes Lucci's wand with his fist, as he tells the professor that he has gone too far. At that moment, the headmaster Wahlberg arrives, informing them that the final interview is about to begin, and that he will now be acting as the examiner. Mash is the first applicant to be interviewed, so he is taken to a room where he is surrounded by school officials. He is asked a few questions, and the officials don't seem to like his answers. However, the headmaster finds him interesting, asking him why he saved the girl in the maze even though he didn't have enough time left. Mash tells him that he had a feeling that he would regret not saving her, and Wahlberg realizes that Mash is the type to act before thinking, explaining that there are creatures stronger than him, and he wonders if Mash would act that way if faced with such a creature. Wahlberg uses his magic to summon a large creature that threatens to harm a doll, which contains the soul of the person that is dearest to Mash, who is obviously burned dead. Mash tries to stop it by punching it, but it does nothing, and his hand starts bleeding. The school officials are surprised when he uses his hands to stop the blade from reaching the doll. He knows that the creature will eventually disappear, intending to outlast it. Wahlberg realizes that Mash is someone who can protect the weak and regulate the strong, so he recalls the creature and lights up the place, revealing that Mash was just being tested, as he welcomes him to the Easton Magic Academy. Later on, we see them in class, where they learn the lock opening spell, which is considered to be basic. The teacher demonstrates it, but Mash just uses his hands to destroy the lock, making the teacher angry because he didn't even use magic. Mash explains that he is not good with magic, while the boy next to him, Finn, starts seeing him as a troublemaker. After class, Finn looks for his dorm, hoping Mash is not going to be his roommate. He finds his room, but the door is missing, and he sees Mash holding onto it, making him realize that they are going to be sharing the room. They get to know each other, and Finn starts to think that Mash is just a normal guy, but he suddenly introduces Finn to his muscles, making him think he is a weirdo. Mash asks Finn if he can borrow his broom for the next class, since he brought a giant plant root instead, thinking it was a broom. Finn allows it, and the next day, the teacher trains them to fly with the broom. Mash tries to do it, but the broom won't respond to him, so he gets ridiculed by a student, saying that he's slowing the class down. But Mash stomps his foot, and causes the broom to fly into his hand. The student calls him a cheater, saying he didn't use magic, as the teacher announces a time trial to see how fast the students can fly with their brooms. The guy challenges Mash to a race, where the loser must obey the winner until they graduate. Mash accepts the challenge, so they prepare to race. The instructor doubts Mash can even ride his broom, but she begins the race anyway, and Mash ends up winning instantly, setting a new world record with his speed. Everyone is confused, because they didn't even see Mash move, but Finn saw Mash throw the broom forward, and jump towards it, allowing him to ride it while it was in midair. The student accuses Mash of cheating, and he takes pity on him, so he drops the bet. The guy continues to run his mouth, but it gets stitched shut as a student named Cavill makes his entrance. He apologizes on his friend's behalf, but everyone knows that Cavill is a troublemaker, so they are worried about Mash, thinking he has just become a target. Cavill introduces himself to Mash, but Mash mishears his name as Cabbage, making everyone fall silent. Cavill prepares to cast a spell, but the teacher interrupts, reminding them that they are in the middle of class. So Cavill tells him to meet him after class, and he leaves the scene. As they make their way back to their room, Finn reveals that Cavill is the son of a high-ranking member at the Bureau of Magic. He adds that Mash will get expelled if he messes with Cavill, since his family has close ties with the vice principal, and Finn has actually seen students suffer because of Cavill, so he understands why everyone is scared of him. Mash starts baking cream puffs on his own, enjoying the experience, while Cavill is waiting for him at the field, and becomes upset that Mash isn't showing up. The next day, Mash takes out his book for his next class, but it's in terrible condition. Cavill approaches him, asking him why he didn't show up, and Mash apologizes, saying he was too busy making cream puffs, which seems to annoy Cavill. Cavill asks him if he wants to become the Divine Visionary, claiming that he can help Mash achieve his goal by using his connection with the vice principal if Mash will follow his orders. Mash immediately agrees to this, and he turns into Cavill's lapdog, following his every order as part of the deal. Mash prepares for his next class, but he realizes that his book about the subject is also in bad shape. Finn reluctantly agrees to share his book, and Mash thinks he is lucky to have a friend like Finn. Mash gives Cavill some water, but he pours it on the floor, ordering Mash to clean it up. As Mash cleans the floor, it's revealed that Cavill was ordering Finn to tamper with Mash's books, but he is getting bored, so he wants Finn to burn Mash's clothes. Finn refuses to obey, so Cavill uses his magic to bring Finn to his knees and beat him up. After some time, Mash arrives at the scene, asking Cavill what he's doing. Cavill claims he just wants to get an apology from Finn, who starts crying as he confesses that he ruined Mash's books under Cavill's orders, apologizing for his actions. Cavill asks Mash if he wants to have dinner with the vice principal, but Mash goes to him and bashes his head against the floor, instantly knocking him out. Finn tells Mash that he is going to get expelled, making him realize that he is in trouble. The vice principal Farman suddenly arrives, revealing that Cavill's father entrusted him to look after his son. Farman witnessed the entire incident, but he calls it a violent attack against Cavill, so he is going to hold a school conference to discuss what they just did. He mentions that their status is different from Cavill, so he deserves special treatment, even calling them idiots. As he continues to run his mouth, Mash rushes over to him, landing a knee strike on his face, while the others watch in horror. Mash explains that since Farman isn't open to reason, it would make sense to beat him up, since he is already in trouble anyway. Farman threatens to expel him as he tries to cast a spell, but Mash slaps dirt on his face. He digs a hole in the ground, slamming Farman into the hole, and he proceeds to cover it up. Farman warns Mash that he won't get away with this, but Mash threatens to bury him alive. After that, he is summoned by the headmaster, who tells him that he just received a notice from the Bureau of Magic to have him expelled. We learn that the Bureau of Magic is the highest legal authority in the land, and the divine visionaries produced by the Academy are at its core. He reminds Mash about Cavil's status, but he burns the notice, because he doesn't want good people to be put at a disadvantage. Wahlberg rants about the current status of the world, since it only serves the elites. He thinks that it needs more people like Mash, who are willing to sacrifice themselves to do the right thing, and he even wants Mash to become a divine visionary someday. Mash mentions how he plans to become one, so the headmaster explains the way to become one, but Mash can't handle all the information. So Wahlberg decides to keep it simple, telling him that he just needs to earn high marks and acquire as many coins as possible. He assures Mash that he will take care of the bureau and the vice principal, and Mash takes his leave. The next day, the captain of the Duello team, Tom, invites him to represent their dorm in a game, which is basically like Quidditch from Harry Potter. Mash says that he can't ride a broom, but Tom doesn't believe him, dragging him into the team. During the match, the enemy grabs possession of the ball, and Mash is still on the ground, as he reiterates that he can't ride a broom. The crowd thinks that he isn't even trying, so they jeer at him, throwing things at him. His team is getting wrecked, and Tom goes to him, explaining the rules of the game. We learn that they need to pass the ball through the enemy's ring to earn points, and the use of magic is forbidden, since the game is all about broom technique. Tom is about to get back to the game, when the enemy captain intentionally bumps into him, causing him to fall. Mash checks up on him, and Tom seems to have broken some bones, asking the enemy captain about his sense of sportsmanship. But the enemy captain doesn't care, revealing that winning is all that matters to him. Before getting back into the game, Tom knows that their team is about to lose, but he tells Mash that winning isn't everything, and that giving one's best is even more important. They are 50 points behind, making the enemy captain think that they are about to win, but they seem to have enraged Mash, who grabs onto his broom and jumps into the air. He maintains his altitude by rapidly kicking around, leaving the spectators confused. He gains possession of the ball, while the enemy team charges toward him, but he uses his inhuman strength to throw the ball, blowing them away, and scoring a point. The crowd is surprised as the ball circles around, returning to Mash like a boomerang. He keeps repeating the same move to score more points, while everyone watches on in disbelief. Their score eventually reaches 999, making them the winners, and the Academy recognizes their score as a record, and they are given silver coins as a reward. Finn thinks his performance was incredible, but Mash doesn't want to play that game again, while Tom gives him a hug, as he thanks him for helping the team win. Later, we see a student named Lance reading a newspaper, where he learns about Mash's achievement. He recognizes Mash from the entrance exam, destroying his picture as he makes Mash his next target. During his class, Tom pesters him into practicing for their game, while Lemon wants to study with him, but Mash isn't interested in spending time with them. At that moment, Lance appears, and Lemon recognizes him as the student who topped the entrance exam. Lance wants to do something fun, pulling out a special magical tool and opening it, causing Mash's friends to disappear, as they are trapped inside of the bottle. Lance tells Mash to go to the forest if he wants them back, and then disappears. They meet at the forest, where Lance reveals he is also collecting coins, showing 2 silver coins. We learn that most people only have one magic line on their face, but there are rare cases when a person has more magic lines, indicating that they have greater magical power. Lance challenges Mash to a duel, where they each bet 1 silver coin, and Mash accepts the duel, so Lance pulls out his wand, using a spell to prepare the area for their duel. After he has cleared the area, Mash tries to attack him with his fists, but Lance uses a gravity spell to slam him to the ground. Mash struggles as he tries to stand, while Lance tells him that no human can withstand his spell, but Mash punches through the ground, pulling out giant roots and splitting the earth beneath his opponent, driving him back. Lance lands on his knees, stunned by Mash's ridiculous power, as Mash dashes towards him. Lance tries to stop Mash with the same gravity spell, but Mash uses his speed to escape and tries to punch him, but Lance narrowly dodges his attacks. His necklace falls to the ground, and Mash picks it up out of curiosity. He opens it up, revealing the picture of Lance's sister, and Lance confesses that he has a sister complex, telling Mash to give it back. Lance asks him what is the most important thing in the world. Mash tries to answer cream puffs, but Lance tells him he is wrong, and the only correct answer is his little sister, making Mash think that he's a creep. Lance threatens to drop his friends down the cliff, claiming that he will use them to help him win the match. In a flashback, we learn that Lance's sister is suffering from an incurable disease that will strip her of her magical powers. and without them, she will have to be taken out, because magicless people have no right to live in their world, so Lance wants to become a divine visionary to save his sister from the system. Back in the present, Lance drops the bottle, using a magic spell to accelerate its descent, but Mash changes into his workout gear. He gets into starting position, and dashes forward, moving so fast that he disappears before his enemy's eyes. Lance tries to look for him, and Mash suddenly appears behind him. He can't believe that Mash managed to recover the bottle so quickly, thinking he must be using magic, but Mash is no longer interested in fighting, because he knows that Lance is not a bad guy, pointing out that the bottle he dropped was empty. He rushes towards Lance, managing to grab the real bottle, and he frees his friends. Lance concedes the duel, handing over his silver coin before leaving. As he walks away, Mash realizes that Lance is actually a pretty good guy, and his friends surround him, thanking him for saving them. We learn that there are 3 dorms at the academy that divide the students based on their characteristics. There's Mash's dorm Adler, which represents courage, the Orca dorm for wisdom, and the Lang dorm for ambition, with the 3 dorms having a rivalry between them at the academy. Mash puts together his silver coins, and we learn that 5 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin. He relaxes with Finn, who suddenly starts to panic, because they haven't done their potions assignment. Lance shows up, calling them slackers for forgetting the assignment, worrying they are going to ruin their dorm's reputation. But Mash uses his necklace against him, and just seeing his little sister blows him away, and knocks him out cold. He ends up deciding to help them, revealing a screaming mandrake used for the assignment, a plant that becomes a useful ingredient after it is silenced. He shows them the spell to put it asleep, and tells them to give it a shot. Finn tries out the spell, but he fails to put it to sleep. Mash comments that it's because his core muscles are too weak, but when Mash tries out the spell, his mandrake starts freaking out instead. Lance gives Finn some pointers, telling him to focus his magic on a single point, and Finn manages to put his mandrake to sleep. But meanwhile, Mash's mandrake has become huge, going on a rampage, but Mash just gives it a slap, and knocks it out. Lance moves on to preparing the mandrake, saying it's pretty easy, showing them how it's done, cooking it up, and creating a potion. Finn thinks it's not easy at all, but Mash is confident, saying it's no problem, since it doesn't require any magic. So he repeats the steps that Lance showed him, but he ends up making a cream puff instead. Lance thinks he is messing around, so he watches Mash and guides him step by step, but it still turns out as a cream puff, which leaves Lance completely confused. And despite all his attempts, it always comes out as a cream puff, but they are actually pretty good. We see Headmaster Wahlberg, as he thinks about the upcoming cross-dorm, off-campus class, wondering if Mash will be okay. We see a student named Barrett, as he bumps into some other students. They tell him off, but he ends up beating them all up, and he calls them side characters. Meanwhile at the Lang dorm, they think that those who rule should have overwhelming power, thinking that the Adler dorm is unworthy, so the leader orders for them to take all of the coins from the Adler students. The next day, the Lang and Adler dorms have a joint class in the forest. Mash wonders what they will be doing for the class, and they notice Barrett, who makes a racket about how he is the main character. Mash thinks he is weird, but Barrett thinks he is a side character, looking at his appearance. But Lemon arrives, asking Mash if she can tag along with him. Barrett gets annoyed and spits on Mash. He starts freaking out about how he is getting attention from a girl, thinking that it's because of people like him that he can't get a girl himself, wanting to join the bureau so he can get rid of all the hot guys in the world. But the group just ignores him, and he gets even more annoyed. However, the professor appears, explaining their next class. They are tasked with taking out forest scorpions and retrieving the stone from their heads. Regular stones are worth a bronze coin, but the stronger scorpions have a square stone, which is worth a silver coin. The professor sends them off, and Mash is aiming for a silver coin. He is suddenly approached by a student named Silva, who witnessed his feat during his duello match, but reminds him he is nothing as he attacks Mash with a pillar of iron. The professor breaks things up, and Silva claims they were just messing around. Mash glares at him, but Lance ends up stopping him, revealing that Silva is actually a year older than them, but since he was a troublemaker, he was held back for a year. Lance warns him to avoid Silva, but Mash is just glad his cream puff didn't get squished. They head into the forest, and Lance thinks they should work together, but Mash disappears, because he happened to zone out. He runs into Barrett, who starts freaking out, but he just slaps him. Barrett wants to fight him, but they suddenly hear a scream as we see a girl being attacked by another student. She cries for help, and there is an explosion that defeats the boy. The girl thanks Barrett for saving her, and he starts to freak out. He tries to act cool, but when she grabs his hand, he starts to lose it. Meanwhile, we see a defeated Scorpion, as it seems Silva has already obtained a square stone, but it seems there is something else he is after. The girl thanks Barrett once again, and their knees touch. Barrett is overwhelmed, and starts slamming his head into the ground, but we learn that the girl is using magic to charm him, magic that makes anyone who finds her attractive to fall madly in love with her. She tries to work her magic on Mash, but he says he didn't really do anything. The girl is shocked her magic isn't working on him, so she tries to use more energy, grabbing his hand, but it still has no effect on him, leaving her devastated. Barrett wonders about her situation, and the girl explains she is being threatened by Silva, who is forcing her to use her unique magic. Barrett swears to help her, and at that moment, they are suddenly attacked, and Silva appears. Barrett decides to fight him to help the girl. He attacks with a barrage of fireballs, ending things with a giant explosion. Meanwhile, we see Finn and Lemon clinging onto Lance as they cry for help, but he wonders if Mash is okay, since he is being targeted by Silva. Barrett thinks he has won, but as the smoke clears, we see that Silva protected himself with his iron. He attacks Barrett with his pillar, and knocks Mash's cream puff out of his hand. Silva continues to taunt them to fight him, while Mash is just stunned by the loss of his cream puff. Barrett starts to get worried, thinking there is a big difference in their magic power. He thinks Mash is no use, so he thinks it's all up to him to save the girl. Silva starts taunting him, saying his magic was weak and calling him a letdown. So he decides to give them a chance, saying if he can take 5 of his attacks, he will leave the girl alone, even wagering a silver coin in accordance with the rules of the academy. The girl thinks it's a ridiculous deal, saying he could get seriously injured, but Barrett accepts it, thinking he can withstand 5 hits. However, Silva says that Mash is also a part of it, so he also needs to agree. Barrett says Mash isn't involved, but Silva insists that he is, so Barrett decides to take on all 10 attacks to cover for Mash. Silva thinks he is mad, and he starts attacking with his Iron Fist spell. Barrett is brought to his knees after just 1 attack, but he manages to get back up. Silva keeps on attacking with his spell, and Barrett is continuously slammed by the iron pillars, while the girl and Mash watch on. After 9 attacks, Barrett is still standing, thinking about how the girl cried for his help. Silva prepares an extra strong attack for the final blow. The attack lands, and Barrett is knocked out. Silva starts to gloat, but Barrett somehow manages to get back up. He approaches Silva, saying that it's over, but he suddenly collapses, and Silva calls him an idiot. Barrett tells Mash to take the girl and run, but it's revealed that the girl is actually working with Silva, as she calls him cheesy, and says that she hates guys like him. Silva laughs at him for being so easily tricked, but his mouth is suddenly stuffed with a cream puff. Mash thinks they have gone too far, and decides to join the fight, saying that he will join the 10-hit challenge, telling Silva to bring it on. Meanwhile, we see his friends manage to take out a Scorpion, but Lance wonders if Mash will be okay. Lemon thinks he will be fine, since he even beat the professor during their entrance exam, but Lance explains there are different types of magic users. There are white mages that are more academic and support-focused, and there are red mages that focus on combat, and Mash has really only gone up against white mages so far. He thinks that if Mash were to go up against any red mage past their first year, there would be many that would surpass him. Silva thinks Mash is just acting tough, and he goes on to say how he hates weaklings that act tough, seeing them as hypocrites, and he finds it amusing to crush their spirits. He notices his robe is slightly singed from Barrett's magic, so he prepares to attack him again, but Mash rushes at him, although he manages to counter. Mash is pushed back, and Silva starts to laugh, thinking he is far superior, mentioning how he earned 2 gold coins during his first year at the academy. He attacks Mash with his magic, and Mash gets pummeled, but he eventually catches Silva's spell, crushing it with his hand. Mash prepares to use tricep magic, and Silva thinks he is messing around. He keeps on attacking with his iron pillars, but Mash dodges, and starts smashing right through them. He lands a punch on Silva, blowing him away, and he starts bleeding all over the place, wondering what is going on. He thinks his magic is top tier, even among the second-year students, as he launches a counterattack, but Mash smashes right through it, landing another blow on him. Silva is brought to his knees, and he starts to realize he can't win. He knows he can't take any more hits, but Mash suddenly backs away and takes a seat. Silva wonders what he is doing, and Mash tells him there are 8 more attacks to go. Mash gets back up, asking if he is ready for the next attack, but Silva knows he can't take any more, thinking he would die. He tries to think of a plan, and at that moment, an enormous scorpion suddenly appears. It has a star-shaped stone on its head, which means it's extra strong and valuable. Silva thinks he can get away while Mash is occupied by it, but Mash sends it flying with a single hit, saying he has no time to deal with it, and it drops its star-shaped stone. Silva starts freaking out, thinking Mash is a monster, but Mash calls off their fight, feeling bad for him, and he turns his attention to the girl. The girl starts panicking, and she turns on the waterworks, crying and saying that she was forced into helping Silva. But Mash tells her it's okay, and she thinks that men are just too easy to manipulate. But Mash believes in equality, as he slams her into the ground, and Barrett thinks there is something wrong with him. Mash meets up with his friends, and Lemon worries, seeing him all beaten up, but he says he is fine. Finn is impressed he even beat the Starstone Scorpion, revealing that it's worth 2 silver coins. Lemon thinks he should go to the nurse's office, and she checks up on Barrett as well. He is instantly charmed by her, and he starts freaking out, while she thinks he is just weird. Barrett ends up apologizing to Mash for getting him mixed up into things, and thanks him for his help. But Mash thinks he is acting weird, so Barrett immediately threatens to beat him, saying it took everything for him to be nice. Mash's pocket suddenly glows, as his silver coins have joined to become a gold coin. Lance mentions how they are being targeted, hearing that the ENGDUB is hunting them for their coins, explaining why Silva was after them. He explains that the ENGDUB is basically Slytherin, with people that value birthright and bloodlines, wanting to prevent the riffraff from joining the Bureau of Magic. He warns them to watch out for the Magia Lupus, the group of elite students from the ENGDUB. Mash mentions how he didn't even know they were separated by dorms, and Finn reminds him about the sorting ceremony. We see that right after they were accepted into the academy, they were sorted by the skeleton of a unicorn. The students grab onto its horn, and the skeleton is able to read their mind and sort them into the appropriate dorm. But when it was Mash's turn, it sees he only thinks about cream puffs. The skeleton panics, as this is the first time in centuries it has struggled to sort a student. It tries to look deeper into his mind, but there's really only cream puffs. And it just decides that people who love cream puffs must belong to the Adler dorm. Lance continues to explain that the Magia Lupus consists of the 7 top students of the dorm, and Silva must have been one of their lackeys. He warns Mash that since he has a coin, he needs to be extra careful, telling him to stick with people from their dorm. But despite this warning, Mash ends up getting lost while looking for his class. He finds a door to a room, and he thinks about how to open it, wondering if it is a push or a pull. Meanwhile, we see Silva as he apologizes for his failure. We learn that the leader of the ENGDUB is named Abel, and he holds a creepy-looking doll. He says that their mission is to cleanse the world of its impurities, and Silva begs for a second chance, but Abel calls him unworthy to even be a pawn, and he is turned into a doll. The doll gets up, and proceeds to get in line, and Abel claims he is the only one worthy to become the next divine visionary, as he talks to his doll which he calls Mother. But at that moment, Mash suddenly enters, apologizing for destroying another door, and he points out that Abel is weird for talking to a doll. Abel is aware that Mash has a gold coin, and he asks him why he is trying to become a divine visionary. Mash says he just wants to live peacefully with his family, but the current world won't accept him. Abel thinks he is ridiculous and unworthy, explaining how he wants to return the world to its rightful form. He says humanity was able to flourish, thanks to getting rid of the weak, and people without magic, but he thinks society has started to become weak. He calls humans beasts by nature, so he plans to restore the natural order, but Mash thinks he just wants to live peacefully as well, not understanding what he was saying. Abel offers to let him go in exchange for his gold coin, but Mash just refuses. Abel attacks with one of his puppets, but Mash dodges, countering with his legs and ripping the strings attached to the puppet, and it turns back into Silva. Mash is suddenly grabbed by another puppet. The puppet grabs his coin and flicks it over to Abel. Mash is then thrown into a pillar, but he gets back up, apologizing for calling his puppet weak, but he suddenly steps on Abel's head, so he decides to take him to the infirmary. Abel wonders if he is giving up on his coin, but Mash says he is just prioritizing, but he declares he won't lose, no matter how strong they are. Mash leaves with Silva, but Abel feels something is off. He notices a missing button on his puppet, and he finds it in his hand instead of Mash's coin. One of the students can't believe what just happened. As the puppet was flicking the coin, Mash ripped its button off, spitting it out at an incredible speed, hitting the coin in midair, and sucking his coin back to himself. The girl can't believe it, and Abel finds Mash interesting. At the infirmary, Silva suddenly wakes up, wondering what happened, because he has no memory of anything after he was turned into a doll. But he sees Mash working out in front of him, and he realizes Mash must have saved him. He asks why Mash would save him when they were just enemies, but Mash says that when one is in trouble, they are all in trouble. Seeing he is okay, Mash decides to leave, and Silva reflects on his actions. Meanwhile, in Mash's dorm room, we see Lance and Barrett in a heated discussion. Lance comments on his new hairstyle, and Barrett says it's none of his business, but he thinks Lemon prefers guys with bangs. Finn wonders what they are doing in his room, but Barrett gets pissed off looking at Lance, thinking he's had an easy life thanks to his good looks. Lance wants to teach him a lesson, and the two prepare to fight, but Mash suddenly enters, telling them not to break things in his room. Mash enjoys a cream puff, thinking it's just another peaceful day. Lemon suddenly appears, saying there is big news, leading them over to a magic scale. The scale shows how many gold coins each dorm has, and we see the Lang dorm already has 15, while the Alder and Orca dorms only have 1 each. The Lang dorm has been taking coins from the other dorms, and all of the Alder upperclassmen who could stop them are away on internships. So at this rate, Lang will have the next divine visionary. The Orca dorm is too busy focused on their research, so it's up to them to stop the Lang dorm. The guys get fired up, thinking they just need to crush the Lang students. But Mash ends up in the Owl Hut, and we learn that the headmaster was forced to give him a punishment, so he has to clean the Owl Hut for a week. The owls peck at him, and he thinks about how they were just getting fired up. Lance decides to join him, saying that the Lang students might target him since he has a coin, so he can use that as a chance to hunt them, but Mash thinks he is just worried about him. Meanwhile, we see 2 Lang students approaching, preparing themselves to take Mash's coin. The owls keep pecking at Mash, and water suddenly appears underneath him, and he falls in, while Lance dodges a giant spinning blade. Mash struggles in the water, and the 2 Lang students introduce themselves as Andrew and Shinri, the 6th and 7th fangs of the Magia Lupus, challenging them to a fight, while wagering a gold coin. Mash says he's never swum, as he sinks into the water. Andrew transforms into a shark, and jumps into some water to go after Mash, leading Shinri to face off against Lance. Shinri attacks with his blade, but Lance dodges, thinking his magic to control a spinning blade is pretty weak compared to his gravity magic. But as he goes to cast his spell, he is distracted by the owls. He dodges another attack, and tries to focus on casting his spell, but he thinks of his sister, telling him not to harm the owls. Shinri attacks using double blades, and Lance notices the owls behind him, so he ends up getting hit by the attack. Shinri sees that Lance's wand is made out of magnolia, so he realizes Lance is from the Crown family who specializes in gravity magic. He heard that the son of the Crown family ran away from home, so he thinks it was because he was too weak, and he thinks he can feel superior for beating someone from the Crown family. Lance manages to use his spell, but it only makes a shovel fall to the ground. Shinri is disappointed with him, and decides to finish him off, attacking with triple blades. But he thinks something is off, as he notices all the owls in one spot. Lance uses his gravity spell, crushing all of the blades, as he says the owls were in the way, so he moves them by dropping a shovel to cut open a bag of feed to draw all the owls into one spot. Shinri attacks using his strongest blade, but Lance easily crushes him with his gravity. Shinri can't believe that even though they both have double lines, there is such a big difference in their power, but Lance says that someone like him, who fights for themselves to feel superior, can't compare to him, who fights for the sake of saving his sister. Meanwhile, Andrew gloats about trapping Mash in his sea field, saying there is no way to escape. But Mash suddenly zooms past, and Andrew is shocked at the speed, not even able to see what it was. He thinks he must be imagining things, but Mash zooms right past him once again. He thinks about how Mash said he didn't know how to swim, but Mash says he got the hang of it, thanking him for helping him realize he could swim. Mash continues to swim all around him, and Andrew feels like he is the one getting hunted, so he uses another spell to transform into a more monstrous form, but Mash crashes into him, continuously hitting him as he swims. Andrew can't handle the blows, and Mash ends up escaping the sea field. Lance takes their coin, and they think they weren't that strong for being members of the Magia Lupus. Mash thinks they aren't a big deal, but suddenly, another one of their members appear. In an instant, he gets past the both of them, and Lance tries to use his gravity spell, but for some reason, his spell doesn't work. Mash immediately gets into his gear, charging with all his speed, but the man manages to dodge him. Lance wonders if he uses some kind of teleportation magic, but the man uses a magic bottle to collect his allies. The man bids them farewell, but says they will meet again soon, and Lance thinks that beating the Magia Lupus might not be so easy after all. As the masked man walks away, his mask cracks, and he thinks about Mash's attack. He thinks about how he was able to move so fast, even without magic, and he wonders if they are the same. At night, we see the man as he confronts a student from the Orca dorm for his gold coin. The student attacks with magma magic, but he is completely unfazed, and ends up easily defeating him, disappointed it ended so quickly. Elsewhere, we see a puppet, in the robes of a student, wandering through the school. The next day, Lance plans how they should deal with the Magia Lupus. We learn the location of each dorm is hidden, so Lance suggests finding the Lang dorm and going on the offensive to take their coins, but Mash is too busy making cream puffs. Lance gives him a new robe, and Mash notices it has a logo on the back. Lance tells him it's the mark of Adler, hoping it will remind him that he belongs to their dorm. Lemon suddenly bursts in, telling them something happened to Tom. They visit him in the infirmary, and find he looks completely drained. Tom says he has no memory of how he ended up in the infirmary, but notes that he normally lives his life at full throttle, so he usually falls right asleep and doesn't dream, but last night, he dreamt he was trapped in a dark box, feeling conscious, but he couldn't do anything. Lemon wonders how he is feeling, and Tom says he is okay, but it seems he is temporarily unable to use magic, feeling as though his magic energy has been drained from him. It's revealed there are a number of other students who are suffering from the same condition, and it seems to have started ever since the headmaster was called away by the Bureau of Magic. Lemon gives Mash a cream puff lucky charm, and makes him promise not to do anything too risky. She tells him to always keep it with him, so he can think of her, but she starts to lose it imagining him dreaming about her. Later that night, Lance and Mash wander around the school, looking for the Lang dorm. They are joined by Barrett and Finn, but Lance wonders why they are tagging along. Barrett is interested in getting coins, and Finn just doesn't want to be left alone in his room. As they explore, they end up seeing Lemon, and Barrett rushes over to her, but Lance notices something is off. Lemon's body twists and convulses, and she has been turned into a puppet, but the others manage to avoid her gaze. She continues on her way, and Barrett finds her cute even as a puppet. They decide to go after her, but when they turn the corner, they come to a dead end. Finn hears the crackling of her body, and Lance uses Revelio, which reveals a hidden door. Lance notes they need another spell to open the door, and Barrett tries using his fireballs to blow it open, but the door doesn't even budge, and he wonders how they are going to get in. But Mash grabs a suit of armor, throwing it down next to the door, and he is able to crack it open. He sticks the sword inside, using it as a lever, and he steps on it, blowing the door right out of the school, and creating a huge hole in the roof. Lance notes that the Magia Lupus is probably waiting for them inside, and Mash looks at his good luck charm, thinking he won't be able to keep his promise to Lemon. The group heads in, and they are surprised there was a hidden space under the school. They see light at the end of the tunnel, and they come out to an arena. A student named Getsuku appears, and tells them they need to defeat him in order to continue. Lance is about to fight, but Barrett decides to step in, since he has a grudge against good-looking guys. Barrett rants about how easy his life must be, but Getsuku thinks he's just jealous, and he transforms his wand into a rose whip, and the two prepare to fight. Meanwhile at the Bureau of Magic, we see Headmaster Wahlberg talking to the director. Wahlberg knows he must have been called for a serious issue, and the director reveals that 6 of the most notorious criminals on death row have escaped their prison. The guards were all slaughtered, and it seems they had help from the one known as Innocent Zero. Back at the arena, Barrett attacks with his fireball, but it gets stopped by Getsuku's vines. The vines lash out, and Barrett barely manages to dodge. However, Barrett is still confident he will win, as he attacks with another round of fireballs, but they just land around Getsuku, creating marks around him. Barrett tells him to watch his step, saying they have 5 times the power as normal. Getsuku thinks it's a lame trap, but Barrett is sure he will fall for it. Getsuku wonders if Barrett has a way to move him into the trap, but he attacks with his rose whip. Barrett tries to defend himself, but his fireballs aren't very effective, and he gets hit by the vines. Barrett gets grabbed, and he even drops his wand. Getsuga grows the thorns on his vines, stabbing Barrett with the spikes. Getsuga tells him the fight is over and goes to finish him off, but Barrett activates his trap card, causing a huge explosion from one of the marks. Getsuga's wand is destroyed, and Barrett mentions he never said anything about stepping on the marks, revealing that his spell was actually a time bomb. He activates his remaining marks, and Getsuga can't believe he lost to someone like him. The marks go off and cause a huge explosion. Finn congratulates him, and Barrett is excited to face another opponent, but Getsuga poses even though he is defeated, and the group suddenly starts sinking into the ground. Mash tries to save his cream puff, and they all get sucked into the ground. They land on the floor below, and it seems they are all split up. Lance suddenly feels an overwhelming energy, and he is confronted by Maddle, the third fangs of the Magia Lupus. Barrett and Finn land together, and they come across Milo and Love, the fourth and fifth fangs. And Finn thinks they are doomed, but Barrett tells him not to give up, thinking he has the power of the main character. Meanwhile, Mash lands in a dark room, wondering where his friends are. The room lights up, and he is greeted by the masked man, who introduces himself as Razor, the second fangs of the Magia Lupus. He compliments Mash on his movements from their last meeting, but he seems to have figured out that Mash can't use any magic, and Mash gets worried that someone has figured out his secret. We see Maddle as he explains how strength is everything in their world, and the weak are worthless. Lance isn't interested, and attacks using his gravity magic, but Maddle gets squished into mud, and seeps into the ground. Maddle reappears behind him with a number of clones, calling his gravity magic interesting, and they charge at him. Lance defends himself with his spell, squashing them back into mud, but Maddle tells him it's useless, as the mud starts to reform, attacking with a spike, which Lance barely avoids. Lance thinks he needs to attack the real body to stop the clones, so he decides to attack the whole field with his magic. But Maddle reappears behind him once again, catching him with his mud, and Maddle attacks with a barrage of hardened mud balls. Maddle thinks Lance is pretty skilled, but says his talent is being wasted, so he invites him to serve the Magia Lupus. Maddle explains that mages develop depending on their environment and the people around them. He calls everyone in the Adler dorm trash, and tells Lance he will only sink to their level by hanging around them. He boasts about the talent they have in the Magia Lupus, as well as having the best education, tools, and potions. But Lance scoffs, saying that his strength isn't reliant on his environment, calling Maddle inferior. Lance attacks with his magic, but this time, he sends Maddle into the wall. He explodes with mud, and it seems he has surrounded the room with mud to absorb any impacts. So against gravity magic, which relies on slamming opponents into the ground, Maddle thinks he can't lose. But Lance suddenly starts attacking with rocks instead, and he realizes Lance has worked out his trick. Maddle is forced out of hiding, and Lance claims that he must have a better environment since he is stronger. But Maddle tells him not to get cocky, as he takes out a potion of magical essence that was extracted from the other students. He drinks the potion, causing his power to surge, and he uses an advanced form of his magic known as Secondeth. He creates an enormous demon mud monster, and he goes on to explain that there are different tiers in magic. Secondeth magic can only be cast by double-liners, and only by the few that are worthy. Maddle thinks back to when he was a child, and his father explains that his worth is solely based on his aptitude for magic, so he has been focused on getting his father's approval. He thinks he is worthy after achieving this level of magic, telling Lance he will never be as strong since he hangs out with other failures. But Lance dodges his attack, thinking about how meeting Mash helped him improve, as he reveals he can also use Secondeth magic, creating gravity pillars that surround Maddle's monster. The monster is pulled by gravity from all sides by each of the pillars, and Lance creates one more above it, causing the monster to be ripped apart. Maddle can't believe he lost, and he thinks back to how his father would never acknowledge him, no matter what he achieved, and he thinks that his father was right, and that he must be worthless. But Lance suddenly throws him his book that he found, and Lance comments on how worn it is, so he can see how hard he has worked to get where he is. Lance says that his own family valued worth by position and social standing, so he thinks they were raised in a similar way. But he thinks about his sister, who just wanted to be a singer, and wanted to try her best, which helped him to realize that that is more important. Although he can't agree with the way Maddle thinks, he respects his efforts, and he leaves to go find his friends. Meanwhile, we see Mash as he worries that Razor knows his secret. Razor thinks they are similar, since they are both rejected by the world, but he says he has his own reasons for being there, so the two prepare to fight. Mash gets changed into his workout gear, charging with a kick that pushes Razor back, but Razor suddenly dashes right past him, cutting him in the process. Razor tells him he can't win, as we see his magic that boosts his speed. He dashes all around, landing multiple hits, and he says they are on different levels. Mash refuses to give up, and Razor thinks his dream to live peacefully with his family is disgusting, because they have similar circumstances, but Mash was lucky with the people around him. He tells Mash to show him what he can do, revealing that Lemon is being drained of her magic power, and after 30 minutes, she will have no magic, just like him. Mash swears he will beat him, and Razor goes all out with his magic, repeatedly slashing Mash as he dashes all around him. Mash can't even defend himself, and ends up getting stabbed in the stomach. Razor says he is too weak to save anyone, but his sword gets stuck as Mash clenches his abs. This lets Mash grab onto him, and he headbutts Razor in the face, breaking his mask, and revealing his face. His eye is red, but Mash thinks it's just bloodshot, and asks if he is okay. Razor explains that his eye is known as the Evil Eye, and has the power to disable anyone's magic. It's seen as a power from the devil, so he is seen as an outcast and rejected by the world. Mash apologizes since the eye doesn't work on him, and Razor explains he is the natural enemy of all magicians, so they have all feared and despised him his entire life. Even his family feared him, and he thinks he should never have been born, but thinks Mash wouldn't understand since he was blessed to have a loving father. He activates his secondeth magic, creating a field around them, and an arrow appears on Mash's body. In an instant, Razor delivers another devastating attack, explaining that within the field, Mash's speed is drained and transferred to himself, so he had no chance of winning. Mash can only shield himself, and Razor tells him it's the end, but Mash smashes the ground, splitting the floor, and he destroys Razor's sword. Razor realizes that by splitting the floor, his movements were limited. He thinks about pulling back, but Mash steps on his foot, stopping him from running. Mash activates his muscle magic, delivering a devastating smash that blows Razor right out of the field. His spell is broken, and Mash chases him down, kicking him in the back. He gets thrown away, but thinks that if he loses, he will also lose his reason to live. So he tries to fight back, and the two clash, but Mash catches his sword, smashing him into the wall, and Mash proceeds to smash him around all over the place, finishing things off with a submission attack. As Razor lies on the ground, he wishes he was born normal. We learn his evil eye manifested when he was a child, and his parents locked him up in the basement so people wouldn't find out about him. But after some time, his parents even tried to kill him, and he came to the realization that he should never have been born. But he was given purpose by Abel. Even if he was being used as a tool, it gave him a reason to live, but now that he has failed, he thinks he is back to being unwanted. Mash can see how lucky he is to have his father, and he offers to become Razor's friend. But Razor thinks it's impossible, saying it's only a matter of time before his feelings about him will change. But as thanks for his kindness, Razor warns him not to go ahead, saying Abel is on a completely different level, and he has no chance of winning. Mash thanks him for the warning, but decides to keep going. He says that no matter what others think about him, his feelings won't change, and he invites him to have cream puffs together the next time they meet. Barrett and Finn are up against Milo and Love, but we see another student has found the secret door, and he prepares to head inside. Love sees they are both only single-liners, thinking they will be easy to deal with, and Milo decides to let her handle them herself, leaving to go and find Mash instead. Love immediately asks if they like her, but Barrett and Finn find this strange, saying they don't even know her, so she starts asking if they think she is cute instead. Barrett can tell she is trying to be manipulative, but he thinks she is totally his type. However, he claims Lemon is already his fiancée, so he can't be with her, and Love immediately tells him to die. Barrett is shocked she changed so quickly, and Love attacks with her tornado magic. Barrett counters with a fireball, but he can tell there is a big difference in their power. Love claims that all women are queens, saying any guy who can't tell them they are cute and serve them don't deserve to live. Barrett thinks she is being too extreme, and Love asks them if they like her once again. Barrett tries to resist her, saying he already has Lemon, and Finn thinks it must be deja vu. Barrett gets hit by Love's tornado magic and gets blown away. Love claims her father told her she can kill anyone who doesn't cherish her, but Barrett gets back up, attacking with his fireballs. Love says his magic is too weak, but the fireballs land short, causing a smoke screen instead. Barrett lunges for her wand, but Love blows him away, knocking him down. Love reveals that Milo's power is to turn a specific target to stone. The target is the one who opened the door, so Mash will be turned to stone if they don't defeat her and stop Milo within 30 minutes. Love traps Barrett in a tornado cage, telling him it will be impossible for him to escape. Barrett struggles inside it, and Love feels bad for Mash, because his friends are so weak, and she calls him a fool for trying to go up against Abel. Barrett feels like he is about to die, thinking there is nothing he can do, but he has a flashback to when he was a child, where some other kids are picking on him, trading him with their old broom. But there is suddenly an explosion, as his sister stands up for him. She tells him he should fight back, but he thinks that would only make things worse. She thinks he gives up too easily, saying it will be a problem when he gets a real friend, someone who will stand up for him no matter what, so he must fight to hold on to people like that. He thinks about how Mash stood up for him, and he refuses to let Love mock his friend. As Love goes to finish Finn off, Barrett breaks free from her tornado cage. Love is shocked he broke her spell. She attacks with her tornado, but Barrett easily cancels it out. She wonders how his power has suddenly increased, and she notices the mark on his head, recognizing it as the warding cross, which some children are born with and are considered battle demons who can unleash their magic power when their emotions cross a certain point. Barrett says it's a crime to insult his friends, as he creates countless fireballs around the arena. Love panics, and Barrett claims he is the main character as he attacks with his fireballs. There is a huge explosion, but when the smoke clears, it seems he intentionally missed, and he says he doesn't like hurting girls, so he tells her to just leave. Love thanks him for his mercy, and Finn is amazed he defeated her all by himself. He compliments Barrett, but a stone head suddenly appears behind him, and Barrett pushes him out of the way, blocking the attack. Milo returns, wondering what's going on, and Love apologizes for losing. Barrett is glad Milo gave up on trying to turn Mash to stone, but Milo prepares to crush them, summoning a number of stone hands to attack. Barrett thinks he is about to collapse, and Love calls Milo a prodigy, because he is the only first year in the Magia Lupus, so she thinks they have no chance. The hands are about to reach them, but Milo is suddenly stabbed by a sword and blown away. Finn recognizes the sword, and Milo wonders what happened. He becomes shocked, realizing he's up against the previous year's divine visionary, Rain. We learn he is the ace of the Alder Dorm, and he is also Finn's older brother. Milo tries to regain his composure, thinking he is just a student. He attacks with his stone head, but Rain easily splits it in half. Rain summons countless swords, showing his overwhelming power, and he attacks Milo with all his swords. Barrett is amazed by the power of a divine visionary, and Love immediately decides to defect from the Lang dorm. As the dust clears, Milo realizes he stands no chance, so he starts begging for his life, saying he was forced into being bad and he regrets his actions. But Rain kicks him, saying that actions speak louder than words, and he doesn't believe him, as he keeps on stomping on him to teach him a lesson. Barrett is shocked by how brutal he is, wondering if they are really on the same side. Rain tells them to get out, saying he will handle the rest, and Love quickly runs away. After his interrogation, Rain heads deeper into the dungeon, and we learn that he was sent by Headmaster Wahlberg because they had a lead on Innocent Zero, and his pawns should be in the area. He thinks they could be hiding their magic power, but he suddenly runs into Mash, who is eating a cream puff, and Rain finds he has a strange aura. He thinks Mash could be one of the pawns, so he summons a spider which can measure his magic power to see if he is really a student. Rain attacks with his sword, but Mash easily catches it, wondering what's going on. The spider detects he has zero magic, and it thinks it must be a bug, so Rain attacks again, this time with 3% of his power. The attack lands on Mash, but he ends up turning the swords into a chair. The spider still detects zero magic, but Rain decides to test him one more time. He attacks with 10% of his power, and the spider thinks Mash stands no chance, but Mash practices his swing, and he takes the bunting stance. He is able to bunt all of the swords, and they all fall to the ground. Rain asks for his name, and when Mash tells him, Rain remembers Wahlberg telling him about a new student who is quite unique. Rain apologizes for attacking him, but Mash doesn't accept it. Rain feels bad, so he gives Mash a magic handkerchief that has the power to heal his wounds, and Mash thinks he must like rabbits, but he thanks Rain for the item. Rain goes on to warn him about Abel, and Mash wonders how he knows. Rain reveals that Wahlberg told him about his goal to become the next divine visionary, so it's natural for him to be up against Abel, who currently holds the most coins. Rain supports his goal to become a divine visionary, wanting more allies that are strong. He warns Mash about Abel's doll magic, saying he might struggle against him because he has no magic, but Mash insists that he does. Rain wishes him luck, saying he has other things to do, and Mash thanks him for his help, but Rain claims he did everything for his own sake. We see Wahlberg telling him about how Mash puts his friends above himself, and how he even saved his brother, so Rain is rooting for him to achieve his goal. Mash finds the final room, wondering if the door is a push or a pull. He guesses correctly, but he thinks about Lemon and ends up blowing the door open. Abel wonders if he has something against doors, and Mash says he was just trying to knock. Abel is surprised he was able to defeat Razor, thinking Rain should be the only student that could stand up against Razor's evil eye, so Abel thinks he could be on the same level as a divine visionary, but Mash just worries Abel has worked out his secret. However, he becomes relieved when Abel just thinks he is strong, as he refers to him as a fellow superior being, reminding Mash of his plan to get rid of those who are inferior. He thinks the weak have been taking advantage of their kindness, gaining more rights, and making them weaker overall, so he wants to get rid of them all. Mash wonders if he means those who can't use magic, and Abel says they need to be disposed of, because just segregating them from society is not enough. Abel also includes underachievers, and people who shelter the weak on his list, but Mash thinks back to how Burndid took him in. He does a double backflip even as a kid, and Burndid gives him a taste of his first cream puff. He thinks about Burndid telling him how proud he is to have him as his son, and Mash realizes he can't be friends with Abel. Abel says he just doesn't understand, calling him dense, so he decides Mash's inferior genes need to be eliminated, as he sends his puppets to attack. We see Love as she goes to find Abel. She is relieved she managed to get away from Rain, but she finds the door to Abel's room broken, and she is shocked seeing Mash fighting against Abel. Mash crushes one of the puppets, but acid suddenly spills out from it, and Abel tells him he should be more careful. However, Mash grabs onto the head of the puppet he destroyed. Love wonders what Mash can do against the acid puppets, but Mash throws the head, and ends up bowling over all the acid puppets in a single strike. Love can't believe what she just witnessed, and Mash wonders if Abel would consider himself inferior if he loses. He also wonders what Abel has done with Lemon, but Abel claims he doesn't know who he is talking about, as he summons his stronger puppets. He thinks Mash doesn't stand a chance, but the puppets get sent flying, and Abel realizes Mash has gotten even stronger since their last meeting. Mash demands that if he wins, Abel must let Lemon go. Abel is impressed Mash isn't just all talk, but he uses the strongest puppet, Mash himself, as Mash starts to beat himself up. He can't control himself, and we see strings attached to his body. He starts choking himself out, but the string suddenly breaks, as Abel apologizes for using such a crude technique, saying it was too one-sided. Instead, he brings out Finn, who he managed to capture and turn into a puppet. He notes he also captured Barrett, but he was too injured to be useful, so Finn will serve as the entertainment. He sends Finn to attack, but Mash blocks the attack. However, Abel warns him he is not allowed to block, or else he will tear Finn to pieces. Mash starts getting beaten up, and Abel suggests he has the choice to take Finn out himself, saying that people always want to believe they are good, but that's not their true nature. Mash continues taking the hits, and Finn's axe ends up breaking, but Mash is still unfazed. He takes out his gold coin, and Abel wonders if he is finally ready to hand it over. Mash flicks it at him, but it actually cuts the strings controlling Finn, and Finn starts to transform back into a human. The coin returns to Mash, and he claims that the coin must just like him better. Abel uses his technique to control Mash once again, deciding that he is done messing around. Mash tries to resist, but Abel calls it useless, saying it's impossible for a human to resist his power. Mash says he will make him regret messing with his friends, as he is able to take a step, breaking one of Abel's fingers. Mash gets into position, as Abel struggles to hold him back, as Mash breaks free, and smashes him in the face. However, Abel activates his skill, and Mash starts to turn into a puppet. Abel is impressed Mash managed to make him use this spell, but Mash is completely transformed into a puppet, and he says it's all over. Abel goes to take Mash's coin, but it turns out to just be a cream puff, and Abel is confused. He suddenly gets punched, and Mash returns to being a human, glad that his cream puff is okay. Abel wonders how Mash was able to move as a puppet, because his puppet magic blocks the electric signals from the brain, so he shouldn't be able to move. But he realizes it must have been a spinal reflex. Just like pulling back after touching something hot, or moving your foot when your knee gets tapped, There are some actions that bypass the brain to respond quickly to external threats. So taking Mash's cream puff was the trigger for the reflex, and Love thinks it's ridiculous the cream puff was so important to him. Abel acknowledges Mash, so he decides to use the power he gained from extracting the magic from the other students. He activates his second magic, summoning a giant puppet, and he reveals it has the ability to turn anyone within a 100-meter radius into a puppet. He explains the puppet will create invisible strings that will transform his body on contact, and Love worries she is also in range of the attack. Abel says it's impossible to counter his attack, and once he has become a puppet, he will be toyed with until he can never recover. The strings descend, covering the entire area, and Abel says Mash should be happy he made him use his ultimate skill, but his doll is somehow destroyed, and Mash is revealed to be fine. Abel wonders how he is still human, and Mash says he just tore the strings. Abel thinks it should be impossible, since the strings are invisible when they descend, so a normal person should not be able to stop them. Love is shocked by what actually happened, and we see Mash shifted his body in a particular way so that the strings touched him at different times, so the moment he felt the string on his left side, he instantly tore them when he still had control of his right hand. Love can't believe his insane strategy, and Abel wonders if Mash is even human. He tries attacking with his puppet, but Mash completely shatters it, and he appears behind Abel. Mash grabs onto him, jumping up into the air, and he smashes Abel into the ground. In a flashback, we learn about Abel's mother. She was a kind and compassionate person, and although she was a noble, she treated the commoners just as equally, saying that it was only by chance that they were born privileged. But one day she was stabbed. She was distributing food to the poor as she would always do, but one of them got greedy, wanting all the food for himself, and he ended up stabbing her when she resisted. Despite believing in the goodness of humanity, she was taken away, so Abel started to believe that the weak needed to be purged. He gathered the most talented people to join him, people who also weren't satisfied with the way things are in the world. He refuses to change his mind, saying it's natural for the strong to take from the weak, but Mash says he is wrong because there will always be bad people, no matter what their social standing is. Since he won their fight, Mash asks for Lemon's location, and Abel agrees to let all the students go. Mash thinks that since he was doing everything for the sake of his mother, he isn't such a bad guy. Abel releases his spell, revealing Lemon, and Mash catches her. Finn regains consciousness, and the three are glad to be reunited. They all celebrate, and Finn and Lemon call Mash a hero. Finn is in tears thanking Mash, and Lemon apologizes for getting him involved, and she thanks him for saving her. Barrett comes crawling over as well, saying he also helped, and they continue to celebrate together. Abel can't believe he lost to such buffoons, and Finn wonders what happened to Lance. We see Lance in the dungeon, and he runs into Rain. Lance suddenly blocks his attack, and Rain is surprised he could counter his magic. His spider companion reveals his power is through the roof, and we learn that it's not actually Lance, but one of Innocent Zero's associates. The man wonders how Rain saw through his disguise, but Rain is just attacking first and asking questions later, saying that it's faster that way. Rain wonders what Innocent Zero wants from the school. The man reveals they are searching for something. Abel was meant to help them look, but he turned out to be no help, so he is off to kill Abel since they no longer need him. Rain tries to go after him, but he gets stopped by a giant knife. The man goes on ahead, and we see Rain is confronted by another opponent, but he worries for Mash and his friends, because the man heading towards them has the power on the level of a divine visionary. We see Burndead and Brad wondering how Mash is going at the academy, hoping he hasn't been exposed for having no magic. Burndead wonders why Brad doesn't need to work, but he says he is there to get some screen time. Mash and his friends continue to celebrate, and Abel wonders how long they are going to keep fooling around for. Mash excuses himself, saying he needs to go to the bathroom, and his friends are just glad everything is over. We see the other students who were puppets have all been turned back to normal, but the criminal suddenly arrives. They wonder who he is, but the man just blows them away. Barrett thinks about fighting him, but he instantly can sense how strong he is. The man approaches Abel, and we learn that his name is Cell. He sees that Abel lost against someone, and he calls Abel pathetic for not being able to reach the top at the school. Cell thanks him for his intel about the headmaster, but he suddenly controls Abel's hands, and Abel starts choking himself. Cell says he couldn't find the one they were looking for, so he is no longer needed. Abel is about to die, but Mash suddenly returns with a plate of cream puffs, ready to continue their celebration. His friends tell him it's not the time for that, and a fly suddenly lands on his nose. It tickles his nose, causing Mash to sneeze, and he throws the cream puffs at Cell. His friends wonder if it was just a coincidence, and Abel manages to get free. Mash asks for his cream puffs back, and his friends can't believe that's all he is thinking about. Cell throws the cream puffs to the ground, which shocks Mash, and Cell suddenly feels his head ache, as he wonders if Mash is the one he has been looking for. Cell decides to finish what he started, as he lifts Abel up into the air. He prepares to finish him off, and Mash tries to save him, but Razor suddenly appears to protect Abel. Mash rushes over, and Razor apologizes, saying he won't be able to have a cream puff with him. Mash gives him back his magic handkerchief, and Cell is surprised his attack wasn't fatal. He realizes that just before he cast his spell, Mash threw a rock at him which altered his spell's trajectory. Mash stands up to him, and he smashes the ground, kicking one of the rocks at Cell. Everyone is surprised, because Cell is able to catch the rock, and he starts to lick it, but Mash just finds him weird for licking a rock. Cell tells him Razor only has 30 minutes before he is beyond help, so he wonders what Mash will be able to do. He starts attacking with his magic, which Mash smashes with his fists. Cell wonders if he is all talk, combining his magic into a stronger attack, and Mash gets hit. Abel thinks Mash can't win, because there is too much of a difference between them. He thinks back to how his mother would tell him that it was only by chance that they were privileged, and he thinks Cell is just superior to them, so he thinks they have no chance. Cell continues to launch his attacks, but Mash keeps on blocking the attacks. Abel thinks Razor was a fool for saving him, but Mash says Razor was happy. He says Razor was always alone, but Abel was able to give him a reason to keep living, and he was happy to be needed. Mash says he would feel the same way, imagining himself in Razor's situation. Abel remembers that his mother would also tell him to put himself in another's position, so that he can become kinder to others. Mash keeps on fighting, and we see how Razor was feared his entire life. He was always alone, wishing that he was never born, but when he met Abel who accepted him, he was finally able to find a reason to live. He tells Abel to get away while he still can, and Abel thinks he is noble, just like his mother. Mash is stuck defending, and Cell wonders if that is all he can do. Abel can see Mash has no chance to close in on Cell, and Cell starts to get bored, so he attacks with even bigger projectiles. Things are looking bad for Mash, but Abel's doll suddenly protects him. Abel sends his doll to attack, but Cell easily crushes it with his magic. He tells Abel he doesn't stand a chance, but one of the heads suddenly move, revealing Mash was hiding inside, and Mash smashes Cell in the face. Cell is protected by an armor, but he is surprised Mash was able to damage it. He wonders what kind of magic Mash is using, but he says it doesn't matter, as he takes out a mirror. Barrett recognizes it as the Spellflexion Mirror, a magic item that can reflect any kind of magic, so it's the most feared item among magic users. Barrett warns Mash, and Cell tells him to do his worst, saying he will be crushed by his own magic, but Mash smashes right through it. His friends become shocked, realizing Mash's power isn't magical, and they remember his past feats, and they think he is something out of a fairy tale. Cell is unfazed by Mash's attack, but he suddenly notices a mark forming on his hand, so he confirms Mash is really the one they are looking for. The room suddenly shatters, and two giant hands appear. Cell claims he has an urgent errand to run, but tells Mash he will see him again real soon. Cell disappears, and Mash is glad it's over. Abel heads to the infirmary with Razor, and Razor hopes to have cream puffs with Mash the next time they meet. Abel offers Mash his thanks, saying he will return the favor one day. Mash's friends join him, and they are still shocked he has no magic. They worry he will get into trouble if people found out, and Mash starts to get scared, claiming he can totally use magic. His friends decide they will help protect his secret, but one of the other students wakes up, saying he heard everything. He thinks it's ridiculous someone with no magic is at the school, so he plans to tell everyone about Mash. Mash realizes his time has finally come, and his friends wonder what he is going to do. But Mash decides it's the perfect time to have a cream puff. But that's how this series ends for now. Look forward to a new season in 2024. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. The story begins as we see a boy named Gabimaru, who is about to be executed. The executioner readies his sword, striking his neck repeatedly, but the sword ends up breaking, surprising the officials. He returns to his prison cell, where we learn that Gabimaru was trained as a shinobi since he was a child, and has developed a superhuman body because of his training. A woman named Sagiri documents the event, noting that breaking a blade with his flesh is a simple task for a shinobi like him, and Gabimaru confirms this, saying someone with such terrible swordsmanship can't hurt him. The next day, the Lord orders the executioner to burn Gabimaru at the stake. They set him on fire, covering his body in flames, but after a moment, they see his eyes staring at them through the fire, and the Lord becomes frustrated. Gabimaru returns to his cell unscathed, but he claims he's not trying to resist, and that he actually wants them to kill him. Sagiri informs him about her job to record events, so Gabimaru states that he doesn't know his parents, but he heard they were killed by the village chief when he was a baby. He claims he has no dream, because shinobis only live to kill as they're told, and we learn that he was captured when his cohorts betrayed him, because he wanted to leave the village, and he thinks the village chief had something to do with it, since the village doesn't allow anyone to leave. The following day, the Lord orders his men to have Gabimaru torn apart by bulls. They attach his legs to 2 bulls, but he easily overpowers them with his legs, and the bulls become exhausted. Sagiri goes to him, saying he appears to be resisting the execution, and asking him why he wanted to leave the village. Gabimaru claims he was the best in his village, receiving the chief's recognition, and he even married his daughter. However, he says he got fed up with his wife's naive behavior, so he told the chief that he wanted to leave the village, which is how he ended up in this situation. That evening, one of the observers warns Sagiri about Gabimaru, saying he's a hollow man who killed 20 people before he was arrested, but Sagiri wonders why a hollow man would fight so hard to the point he killed 20 men. In his prison cell, we learn that Gabimaru has actually been resisting the executions, but he decides to end it all tomorrow. During his next execution, he is boiled in hot oil, but he somehow survives it. He thinks he should have no lingering attachments, so he wonders why he can't die. The Lord is freaked out, just wanting things to be over with, but Sagiri informs him that arrangements have been made. They escort Gabimaru through a tunnel, and the Lord laughs, thinking Gabimaru is about to die. He is led to a room, where he sees Sagiri waiting for him. The Lord reveals that she is a sword tester and executioner from the Yamada clan, claiming she will be able to behead him with a single blow. Gabimaru imagines her cutting his head off, as he realizes she is the real deal. He breaks his restraints, and Sagiri tries to take him out, but he dodges the attack. Gabimaru is shocked to learn his neck has been cut, and Sagiri continues to attack him as he evades. Sagiri says she can tell that he lied about his wife, and that he actually loves her, which is why he won't let himself be killed. Gabimaru realizes this as well, thinking back to how his time with his wife made him softer. He grabs onto a sword, using it to fight Sagiri, who asks him why he has been lying to himself. He says she knows nothing about the world he lives in, claiming he is hollow. In a flashback, his wife tells him he's not hollow, as she hugs him, calling him a kind person since he is the only one who wasn't repulsed by her face. We learn that in their village, men are treated as soldiers while women are just there to bear children. The village chief wanted his daughter to remember this, so he burned her face to make her stop trying to live like an ordinary woman, but she tells him that people's hearts don't die so easily, as she kisses him. He wanted to stop being a shinobi, and live a quiet life with his wife, so he tells the chief about this, which is the real reason why he got betrayed. Back in the present, Gabimaru fights on, gaining momentum as Sagiri struggles to block his attacks. He claims he can never live like a human no matter how hard he tries, but Sagiri tells him he can, showing him a pardon that would dismiss all his crimes, and grant him the shogun's protection, but under the condition that he goes to the underworld. This makes Gabimaru confused, so Sagiri tells him about a beautiful land called Shinsenkyo, which has recently been discovered. It is said that the immortality-granting elixir of life can be found on that land, so the shogun sent a search party to find the elixir, but one evening, a boat returned full of flowers. But when further examined, there is a body among the flowers. The shogun learns about this, so he orders his men to gather criminals, seeing them as expendable, to send them to the island to bring back the elixir of life, and pardon them if they are successful. Sagiri reveals she is there to look for potential candidates, seeing Gabimaru as a good fit. She tells Gabimaru his wife is waiting for him in the village, and the only way for him to reunite with her is to join the expedition. The Lord still wants Gabimaru dead, ordering his men to attack, but Gabimaru uses his ninjutsu, unleashing fire from his body, allowing him to defeat all the guards in the room. The Lord falls to his knees, as Gabimaru agrees to join the expedition, determined to make it back alive. In a flashback, Sagiri witnesses her father performing an execution, which was so perfectly carried out that the man didn't even realize he'd been beheaded. Sagiri made it her goal to replicate his move, and when it came time for her to perform executions, she managed to do it well, but she imagines the people she killed haunting her. A man named Aizen observes that there is doubt and fear in her swordsmanship, which makes people die painful deaths. He tells Sagiri to look at the reflection on her sword, as he states that the truth is reflected in the blade. Back in the present, Sagiri puts a blindfold on Gabimaru, and she makes him join the other criminals, as they are informed the shogun is sitting before them. They are all given orders to travel to Shinsenkyo and return with the elixir of life, saying the successful criminal will be pardoned. This makes the atmosphere change, as the criminals realize they can earn their freedom. The speaker describes the island, but the criminals interrupt him, saying it sounds like a fairy tale. The criminals are ordered to remove their masks, and they see a man with flowers coming out of his body. We learn that the man returned alive from the expedition, but he had lumps all over his body, and they started blooming the next day. The criminals begin to have doubts, not wanting to risk their lives in the expedition, but an official reminds them they have all been sentenced to death, so going to the island is considered a generous offer. A criminal named Nurugai notices that they don't know anything about the island, wondering if the elixir is even there. An official tells them they are free to drop out, so one of the men tries to leave, but he is immediately executed. The official reveals that they will have the Amada clan serve as monitors while on the island, so if they try anything funny, they will be killed on the spot. He warns the criminals not to try anything, and he adds that if their monitors die for whatever reason, they will be executed. The shogun whispers something to an official's ear, and the official tells them that their numbers need to be reduced before going to the island, because they don't have the resources to accommodate all of them. The criminals are confused, but a man named Chobe calls them idiots as he chokes another criminal to death. He points out that the officials are doing nothing, so he concludes that the officials want them to kill each other. The official confirms this, so they start killing each other, as the shogun watches on with excitement, but the official thinks this is just pointless violence. The shogun asks about the criminals with the most exceptional skills, and the official tells him about them, saying the most notable among them is Gabimaru. They observe Gabimaru, but he doesn't appear to be moving, as no one is even attacking him. Aizen notices how the violence is making Sagiri overwhelmed, telling her it will be even more brutal on the island, so he questions her capabilities, thinking she isn't suited for the job. Aizen tells her she should just live quietly in her mansion, and Sagiri tells him that she would have if she could. In a flashback, we see Sagiri running away from some bullies, as they make fun of her family for making a living through people's deaths. One day, she picks up a sword, and she sees the reflection on the sword, allowing her to see the spirits haunting it. Back in the present, some of the criminals think about escaping, so they charge at Sagiri, seeing her as an easy target. Aizen wonders if she can handle them, but Sagiri has accepted her fate as an executioner, and she easily takes them all out, but she starts to feel haunted by her victims again. But the spirits disappear, as Gabimaru says that killing people is never okay. Gabimaru asks if there is another way to choose who's going on the expedition, because not everyone wants to kill people. An official threatens him, telling him to watch his tongue, as he orders a criminal to attack him. The man lifts a stone and throws it at him, but Gabimaru easily dodges it. Gabimaru wants to talk it out, but the criminal refuses, leaving him with no choice but to kill the man, because he needs to survive. He approaches the man, saying he's about to be burdened, as he starts taking out the other criminals with such brutality that even the shogun is unsettled. Sagiri looks at his reflection through her sword, and she sees countless souls around him, but they don't seem to disturb him. This makes Sagiri realize that what she needs is not to get rid of her fear and doubt, but the strength to take on the burdens of the lives she took. The officials stop them, telling them they will be joining the expedition, and we learn that the 10 criminals who will be joining the expedition are the same criminals who have exceptional skills. They all board a ship, and we see the island as they slowly arrive. Gabimaru remembers when the village chief was pierced by multiple weapons, but he didn't fall, proving his immortality, and it was apparently due to a medicine he acquired from a land across the sea. They arrive at Shinsenkyo, where Gabimaru tells Sagiri that the elixir of life is real, but he isn't sure if they will find it on this island. They explore the island, as Sagiri comments on how beautiful the place is, but Gabimaru thinks it's creepy, saying they don't know what's out there. He breaks his restraints, and Sagiri tells him that he's not allowed to do that, but Gabimaru tells her to let it slide, explaining how they only have a strange drawing as a clue, and their food is only good for 3 days. However, Sagiri threatens to kill him, telling him to bind his hands, as she explains she is not his friend, and her role is as executioner, so he reluctantly complies. As he lets Sagiri tie his hands, he suddenly gets hit by a giant steel ball, blowing him away. The ball returns to a criminal named Kyan, who thinks he just got rid of his target, but Gabimaru gets back up, cracking his neck as he admits that it got dislocated. Sagiri explains Kayan is a warrior monk who steals the weapons of the warriors he has killed, but Gabimaru points out that Kayan's hands aren't restrained, so Sagiri asks Kayan's executioner, Kisho, about this. Kisho says they can just tie their hands on the way back, telling Sagiri she's the lowest ranked executioner because she's too rigid. Kayan displays his other weapons, wanting to test them out on Gabimaru. Gabimaru doesn't want to waste time fighting, saying that the others will get ahead of them, but Kayan says that since they have no leads, he is better off taking out the other criminals and then taking his time to look for the elixir, so Gabimaru realizes he has no choice but to fight. Kayan charges at him, but Sagiri asks him to bind his hands. Kayan smashes his head, but the mace shatters, so he brings out other weapons to attack Gabimaru, who continues to tie his hands while he endures the blows, breaking Kayan's weapons. Kayan thrusts his spear at Gabimaru, who has just finished tying his hands. Gabimaru breaks the spear, launching Kayan into the air, and as his weapons fall toward Gabimaru, Gabimaru kicks one of the spears at Kayan, stabbing him in the chest. Sagiri thinks Gabimaru won with a single attack, but Kayan gets back up, saying they're just getting started, but he easily gets defeated by Gabimaru, who uses his own weapons against him. Gabimaru wants to continue their quest, as Kisho beheads Kayan, and he heads back to the ship. Gabimaru wonders if he wants to fight, but Kisho says he is just doing his job and doesn't take any sides, even considering himself lucky for getting out so quickly, reminding Sagiri she will be spending time with a dangerous criminal. Kisho tells them about how the other criminals are breaking the rules, and he predicts they will continue to kill each other until there is only one left standing. We see Aizen tying their boat to a tree, when his criminal Rokuroda gets hungry and suddenly attacks him. He tries to defend himself, but his sword is shattered, and he ends up being eaten by Rokuroda. Some of the other criminals meet their end, as Kisho explains that more will be added since they are expendable, revealing that they are recruiting people from Gabimaru's village, as well as the Amata clan. As he leaves, Kisho warns Sagiri not to let her guard down, and she starts to wonder about Gabimaru's true character. At that moment, Gabimaru suddenly attacks her, but she manages to push him back. Gabimaru recalls when the chief killed his parents, it was because they wanted to leave the village. The chief taught Gabimaru that emotions make a person weak, and he won't be able to protect anything unless he is strong. He exchanges blows with Sagiri as he thinks about this, and Sagiri informs him that killing her is against the rules, but Gabimaru says he needs to find the elixir before the other shinobis from his village arrive, seeing her as a hindrance. He continues to attack Sagiri, who thinks he should be executed immediately, but she finds herself hesitating, and we learn that Gabimaru has the same problem, not knowing why he can't bring himself to kill her. Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him to follow his emotions, and we learn that he has been experiencing emotions since he met his wife, which got in the way during his missions. Gabimaru sees an opening, but he stops as he is about to deal the finishing blow, so he gets pushed back. He sees this as a weakness, thinking he won't be able to survive, so he continues his assault, as he thinks about the chief's advice, making him hollow again. He breaks Sagiri's sword, and he is about to cut her down, but she uses her sheath to defend herself. Gabimaru eventually comes out on top, ready to deal the finishing blow, but he struggles to finish her off, admitting he still has emotions left, and he starts crying, thinking he has become weak. Sagiri tells him it's not weakness, but the seed of strength, as she believes that not fleeing from his emotions is strength. She decides to overlook his behavior, wanting to see him face his emotions and reclaim his life, as she tells him he is no longer his old self. Meanwhile, the criminal Tamiya realizes his hand has been stung by a butterfly, and he recalls what happened to the man who returned from the expedition, so he quickly slices his hand off and kills the insect. His executioner Fuchi is confused by this, but Tamiya shows him the human-faced butterfly, saying that it's not from their world. At that moment, his severed hand transforms into flowers, and more creatures appear around them, including a giant abomination. Meanwhile, Gabimaru and Sagiri are also surrounded, with a fish monster standing before them, so he tells her to stand back, preparing to take it on. In a flashback, we learn that Tamiya was an extremely skilled swordsman, and he agreed to become the officer of a certain lord. One day, he has a drink with his lord, but he hears a comment which makes him upset, so he ended up destroying the mansion's gate and killing his lord, which made an entire clan hunt him down, resulting in his arrest. We see Tamiya with Fuchi as they arrive on the island, and Tamiya notices how his executioner has tools for dissections. Fuchi explains that the Amata clan also dissects bodies to help produce effective medicines. The fish creature uses its arms to attack Gabimaru, but he easily evades and kicks the monster's head. However, the creature grabs onto his foot and slams him against the ground. Gabimaru quickly recovers, as he remembers the shinobi rule, which states that he must not fight an unknown enemy. He thinks about retreating, but the creature suddenly restrains him, smashing his body against the trees before throwing him away. Sagiri is surprised he is actually injured, and they think they should run away, but they soon realize there are giants approaching them from all directions. Wanting to survive, Gabimaru goes berserk, using his ninjutsu to destroy a giant's head. He goes on to butcher the other giants, while Sagiri watches in awe, thinking about how dangerous the job is. A giant suddenly attacks her from behind, which she evades, but centipede monsters grab onto her, restricting her movement as the giant prepares to strike. Gabimaru cuts the giant's arm, allowing him to save Sagiri, but this snaps him out of his berserk state. The fish monster is about to attack them, but the executioner named Genji arrives and takes out the creature. A ninja named Yuzuri joins them, calling Gabimaru impressive for killing all the monsters by himself. Gabimaru questions her motives as she approaches him, trying to seduce him into working with her, but he ends up restraining her, saying her seduction won't work on him. Yuzuri claims she just wanted to try it out, but she is serious about working together. Sagiri wonders why she has two executioners with her, so Genji explains how he was assigned to another criminal, who was killed by her. So because of this, he concluded that one executioner may not be able to control her, so he decided to join them. However, Gabimaru finds the explanation weird, so they conclude that he must have been seduced. The other executioner introduces himself as Senta, and Yuzuri tells them about the creatures in the area, saying finding the elixir is important, but they can't charge in without a plan. Sagiri tells him there is no problem with working together, and Yuzuri hugs onto him, but Gabimaru restrains her, telling her he can't trust her, but she uses her legs to bring him closer, saying he doesn't need to trust her, because they will eventually betray each other because only one of them will be pardoned, so she suggests just using each other for the time being. Gabimaru backs off, as he wonders how she can help him, and Yuzuri reveals she has plenty of information, telling them that the real danger on the island is the human-faced butterfly, which has hallucinogens and poison. She reveals how she got the information, saying she tested the bugs out on another criminal, who she ended up killing. Senta tells them about the items the monsters are wearing, mentioning that they have Buddhist designs, which he finds strange. Yuzuri tells them there is still much they don't know, so they should work together to learn more. Gabimaru says he wants information, but he only agrees to fight together, not wanting to cooperate with her fully. Sagiri watches them as they interact, thinking about what she has done since arriving on the island, but she suddenly collapses. In a flashback, we see a man named Toma, who is about to become an executioner, and Aizen tells him he should take the final step by killing a criminal, thinking about which execution would be suitable. Toma says he has a request, and he goes to his brother Chobei, telling him he knows how to make the magistrate's men stop pursuing them. Back in the present, the brothers are surprised to see three giant creatures standing before them. Chobei immediately attacks them, as Toma reveals that his brother's strength is to quickly understand situations. We learn that the brothers lived in poverty after their parents died, and they were taken by bandits. While with the bandits, Chobei somehow controlled the situation, and he eventually became the bandit king. He cuts down a giant, but his knife breaks, so he runs away with Toma, but a giant grabs onto Toma's hair. As Chobei returns with an axe, Chobei gets hit in the face by a staff, and the monster tells them that murder is a sin. The other creatures start talking to them, which makes Toma believe they're in hell, but Chobei starts cutting through the creatures, and he manages to defeat all of them. Chobei thinks that the elixir must be real since there are monsters protecting it, so he decides to take out everyone on the island, and take the elixir for themselves. Sagiri regains consciousness, and Genji tells them they're safe in a cavern. He informs Sagiri she was poisoned by the butterfly's scales, but she immediately gets back up, wanting to monitor Gabimaru. She leaves the cavern, and she sees Gabimaru preparing dinner, while Senta fixes their torn clothes. While having dinner, Gabimaru reveals he scouted the island, and he learns something about the flora, saying he found several flowers resembling the man they were shown, which makes them conclude that the people who went missing have now turned into plants on the island. Gabimaru wasn't able to find anything that looks like the clue they were given, but Senta suggests they shouldn't rely too much on the illustration, since the officials don't know much about the island. Sagiri notices how the creatures on the island have an animal parts stacked on top of humanoid forms, and Senta adds that they were items that seemed religious. He says they're like malformed gods, which seems to be the theme for the island and the creatures. Later that day, Genji tells Sagiri to return to the mainland, because he believes she isn't strong enough to survive. However, Senna thinks the return trip wouldn't be so easy, since most people don't return from the island. We meet the executioner Tenza, as he tries to escape the island with Nurugai. They eventually stumble upon a ship, but as they get closer, they realize that the ship has been destroyed, along with the other ships around it. Tenza speculates the ships all attempted to leave the island, and they see creatures moving around them, so Tenza pulls out his sword, but a sea monster attacks them, forcing them to jump out of their boat. They land on a shipwreck, and more tentacles appear around them. Tenza slices through them as they search for a usable ship, and Nurugai wonders if she is being punished. Nurugai remembers when she led a group of samurai to her village, and they ended up wiping her whole village out, but the men spared her, planning to use her to find the other villages. While she was locked up, Tenza found her, knowing she is innocent, and showed her the pardon offer. As they run, they come across Kisho, who is now transforming into flowers. Tenza tries to talk to him, but a tentacle cuts him in half. Kisho's body reminds Nurugai about her dead grandfather, and this makes her fall to her knees, telling Tenza to escape without her, as she blames herself for the deaths of everyone in her village. Tenza defends her from the tentacles, asking her if she wants to die, and Nurugai realizes she wants to survive, so Tenza gives her a sword. They fight through the tentacles together, allowing them to reach a boat, which they use to return to the island. They realize that the currents prevent them from escaping, and sea monsters seem to surround the island, so they decide they will need to gather allies for the return trip. Meanwhile, Genji tells Sagiri to sail home, but Senna thinks she could help if Gabimaru needs to be stopped, saying he seems to have changed after spending time with her. That evening, she goes to Gabimaru, who asks if she's feeling better, because he knows the wound he gave her made the insect's poison act quickly. He reveals how Sagiri calmed him down, and Gabimaru claims she is stronger than him, but he doesn't know how to explain it to her, but he tells her that experience can help her realize her strength. The next day, Sagiri tells Genji she won't be leaving, so he pulls out his sword, trying to scare her, but she instantly disarms him. Genji retrieves his sword as he reprimands her, but Rokuroda suddenly appears behind him, and he gets blown away. As a child, Rokuroda had an insatiable appetite, and he loved playing with things using his hands. However, he eventually went on a frenzy, and ate everyone from his village. Rokuroda targets Sagiri, but Gabimaru kicks him away. Rokuroda gets back up, and Gabimaru sees him as a dangerous man, wondering how his kick didn't hurt him. He remembers how he was trained to analyze the enemy's abilities, so he decides to observe his opponent before making a move. Rokuroda uproots a tree and throws it at him, as Gabimaru dodges it. He thinks Rokuroda is stronger than him, so he asks for Yuzuri's help, but she reminds him she's only responsible for gathering information, as she starts cheering for him. Rokuroda wildly swings at him as he evades the attacks, thinking he could die in a single hit. Gabimaru tries launching rocks at his enemy, but it seems to have no effect at all. Seeing this, he takes out his sash, using ninjutsu to make it as hard as steel, but even this is proven to be ineffective. He uses his other techniques, but nothing works, and he starts to wonder how he can take out his opponent. Sagiri tries to treat Genji's wounds, but he tells her to stop, knowing he can't be saved. He tells her to run, but she refuses to leave him, telling him not to give up. This makes Genji realize she has chosen her way of life, so he gives her his sword, explaining how a warrior's sword is his soul. He wants her to kill Rokuroda, as he starts seeing her as one of them. Gabimaru is now running out of options, thinking the only way to beat him is to use his fire technique, but he knows close combat is too dangerous. But Rokuroda's finger is suddenly cut off, as Sagiri joins the fight. Gabimaru finds her timing impeccable, and he knows they need to decapitate him, but he's too tall, so he tells Sagiri to go for the leg. As Gabimaru deflects Rokuroda's attack, Sagiri strikes his leg, but it does nothing to him, and she falls back as he swings at her. Sagiri realizes she screwed up, because she was too aggressive, so she lets go of her emotions. Rokuroda strikes, and Gabimaru manages to evade his attack, but he realizes his leg has been sprained. Sagiri strikes Rokuroda's arm, but it does nothing, and she points out that she needs to strike the gaps between his bones to land a decisive blow, so she needs him to be hunched over for her to behead him. Rokuroda suddenly cries, letting out a powerful scream which overwhelms their senses. He strikes Gabimaru before he can even react, slamming him against the ground. Gabimaru survives this attack, but he falls to his knees, coughing up blood. Rokuroda is about to deal the finishing blow, but Sagiri gets in the way. At that moment, she achieves a serene state of mind, easily deflecting the attack, which surprises everyone. As she fights, Senna reveals that Sagiri is the lowest ranked executioner, because as a woman, she is not suitable to lead their clan. However, in terms of pure skill, the executioners know she is better than most of them. Rokuroda loses his footing, and Sagiri is about to finish him off, but he jumps away. Gabimaru comes up with an idea, as he uses fire ninjutsu to throw flaming projectiles, burning everything around them. Yuzuri runs away, knowing Gabimaru is planning to suffocate Rokuroda with the smoke. The plan works, as Rokuroda gets down on his knees, struggling to breathe, and Sagiri prepares to deal the finishing blow. He tries to strike back, but Gabimaru pushes his hand against the ground, and Sagiri manages to execute him. However, the look in his eyes makes Sagiri realize that he was living a misunderstood life, not knowing how strong he was, so he accidentally killed people when he just wanted to play with them. Gabimaru gets worried the monsters might be drawn to the fire, so they leave the area, leaving behind Genji's remains. They hide as giants make their way to the area, and Gabimaru suggests going in the direction where the monsters came from, thinking it could lead them to the elixir. They catch up to Yuzuri and Senta, and they are all surprised to see a village on the island. Meanwhile, the brothers go deeper into the forest, where they see two beings making out. Chobei wonders if they are monsters, and the yellow one named Jufa becomes angry at them for spoiling the mood. Gabimaru wonders if the residents of the island are friends or foes. He sees a girl spying on them, so he runs after her. He catches up to her, removing her hood, and he is surprised to see she is a child. A tree monster suddenly takes a swing at him, and the girl continues to run away. Gabimaru chases after her, thinking she knows something about the island. He dodges the tree's attack and kicks it away, while Sagiri rushes after him, leading their companions to deal with the creature. Yuzuri removes Senna's glasses, saying she doesn't want him to see her techniques, as she drinks from a cup, causing strange liquid to come out of her body. Gabimaru catches up to the girl, grabbing onto her hand, but the girl throws him to the ground, which surprises him, because a child shouldn't be able to perform such a move on him. Sagiri runs after the girl, telling her they just want to talk, and this causes her to stop, letting Sagiri catch up to her. The girl suddenly tries to punch her, but Gabimaru blocks the attack. He notes that the girl's strength is on another level, as the blow causes him to take a few steps back. Gabimaru tells her he is in a desperate situation, as he grabs onto some vines, wrapping them around the girl and suspending her in midair. The girl starts crying, so they release her, and Sagiri calms her down. Yuzuri joins them, telling them she worked hard to defeat the creature. They gather around to discuss what to do next, when the tree creature tells them to return the girl, as it offers to take them to the village and tell them about the elixir. Yuzuri doesn't trust the creature, but it mentions they have a bath in their village, which instantly makes her change her mind. The creature takes them to the village, which looks like a ghost town, and it tells them it wasn't like this 1,000 years ago. It takes them to its house, where Yuzuri takes a bath with Sagiri, while the monster gives the men some food. Gabimaru is suspicious, asking the monster about the island and the elixir. They gather around the food, as the creature reveals that the island is called Kotaku, and it's an island where gods reside. The monster confirms that the elixir exists, telling them about the legend where it is known as Tan. Gabimaru asks about its location, so the monster draws 3 circles on the floor, saying they are now in the second circle, and the elixir is somewhere at the center of the island, which is known as Horahai. Gabimaru asks for proof that the elixir exists, and the creature tells them they won't doubt his story once they meet the Tensen, which are beautiful and immortal creatures. We see Chobei after he has cut Jufa in half, but the body regenerates, and he is as good as new. The tree claims that the Tensen are completely on another level, explaining it has no reason to lie, because they are all going to end up killed by the Tensen. The brothers are defeated by Jufa, and they are thrown into a pit, which is filled with humans that have transformed into flowers. Toma helps his brother as he regains consciousness, and the tree reveals how the lives of those transformed into flowers become the source of Tan, and the people feel eternal bliss. It introduces itself as Hako, and the girl is Mei, and reveals they have been living on the island for centuries. After that, Gabimaru and Sagiri go to the bathroom, where they run into Mei. She cries at first, but Gabimaru says everyone just shares the bath in his village. Sagiri notices a huge scar on Mei's body, and Gabimaru remembers how his wife told him about the importance of getting proper rest, as she helped him take a bath. He tells Mei not to be ashamed of her scars, because the most beautiful woman he knows has a large scar, saying appearances don't matter, and Sagiri is surprised hearing this. As they walk away, Gabimaru remembers his priorities, thinking he doesn't have time to sit around chatting. In a flashback, we see that Tenza was raised in the slums, and his parents never fed him well, so he had no choice but to steal from other people to survive. One day, he bumps into a group of swordsmen who look down at him, so he ends up beating them up, but they are saved when an executioner named Shion interferes. Back in the present, Tenza walks around the shore with Narugai when a Tensen named Zujin suddenly approaches them. It transforms into a man and asks them about all the dead monsters, wondering if they are the ones responsible. They try to run away, but Zujin immediately catches up to them, blasting Tenza away with a pulse of energy. Narugai quickly backs away, making her way to the downed Tenza. As Zujin walks to her, Tenza suddenly slashes his eyes, but it instantly regenerates. Tenza tells Narugai they're going to escape as he unleashes a combo, slicing Zujin into pieces, before giving the signal to run. As they run, Zujin blocks their path as he regenerates, but Shion suddenly throws his sword at Zujin, giving the duo time to escape. We learn that although Shion is blind, he can see through his other senses. They are able to get away, and we learn that Shion is Tenza's master. Shion says he was about to go home, but he couldn't find a current that leads out of the island. He says he eventually found a current that leads out, but he sensed a presence like nothing he had ever experienced before. Knowing there is only so much he can do alone, he decided to look for allies on the island, but he asks Tenza why he is helping Narugai, as he reveals how he executed the criminal that tried to seduce him. Tenza says Narugai is innocent, reminding Shion how he took him in as he vouches for the girl. Shion decides to listen to him, and he decides to take them to the current that he found, but Zujin suddenly appears behind the duo. Shion dashes to save them, but his neck starts bleeding. Tenza tries to attack Zujin, unleashing a powerful flurry of slashes, but Zujin easily dodges it and counters with a flick of his finger, creating 4 holes in Tenza's body. We see Tenza and Shion in another flashback, as Shion reveals how he likes to help people during his spare time, seeing potential in Tenza. He teaches Tenza how to wield a sword, telling him his sword skills will help him protect someone he cares about. Tenza thinks he has no potential, and he decides to quit, but Shion tells him he can only quit once he lands a hit on him. As he leaves the dojo, Tenza encounters Aizen, who wants to have a walk with him. Aizen takes him to the cemetery, where he shows Tenza the grave of Shion's former junior named Teshin. He lacked motivation like Tenza, and decided to leave the dojo, but he lived a life of crime because he struggled to feed himself, and in the end, Shion had to execute him, but this made him even more passionate about helping others and becoming a mentor. Aizen tells Tenza to land a blow on Shion, so he asks Shion to spar with him, and even though he keeps on losing, he refuses to give up. He eventually hits Shion, but he has already changed his mind, wanting to stay at the dojo with his master. Tenza knows he is about to die, but he has finally found something he wants to protect, so he gets back up and starts pounding Zujin with his fists. He tries to do everything he can to help his companions escape, but Zujin unleashes another energy blast, blowing a hole in his stomach. He tries to tell his companions to escape, but he can't because his throat has been damaged. Shion seems to understand what he's saying, and he runs away with Narugai. Tenza continues to attack Zujin, and he fights to his last breath, giving the others time to escape. They mourn the death of Tenza, and Shion swears he will get revenge for him. Back at the village, Sena can't seem to make sense of the information they've gathered so far, and Sagiri tells him to take a break, but he refuses. That evening, Gabimaru remembers how it would be dangerous to act without a plan, because there are still too many mysteries they need to solve. But while Sena sleeps during his watch duty, Gabimaru leaves, trying to reach Horihai. He eventually stops as he hears weird voices, and he reaches an area full of strange trees, which appear to be praying. He goes in the direction they are facing, and he finds a giant door, which he thinks could lead to the elixir. But before he can open it, Zujin appears behind him, telling him to leave. He asks Zujin if he can turn humans into elixirs, and Zujin suddenly dashes to attack him, but Gabimaru swiftly responds, breaking his arm. He follows up with a powerful kick, breaking Zujin's neck, but it quickly snaps back into place. Gabimaru dodges Zujin's attacks, and counters with a spinning kick, using his fire technique to light his head on fire. The fire consumes Zujin's body, and Gabimaru thinks he has secured victory, but Zujin suddenly punches him, sending him crashing against the wall. Gabimaru survives the attack, and they continue their battle, as he assesses the situation, wondering how he can defeat the Tensen. He manages to land a kick, but it gives him a strange feeling, as Zujin coughs up blood, and he wonders why the attack was successful. Zujin changes to his female form, and he starts attacking with a barrage of energy blasts. Gabimaru is brought to his knees, But he is determined to succeed in his mission no matter what, so he tanks the blows as he dashes forward, allowing him to close the distance. They exchange blows, with neither of them backing down, as Gabimaru plans to destroy Zujin faster than he can heal, and he actually manages to overpower the Tenzin, tearing his body apart. Zujin smiles as his body suddenly transforms into a giant flower monster, which uses a lightning spell, destroying the area around it. Gabimaru survives, and he tries to fight back, but he is no match for Zujin's lightning, and his body reaches its limit. The monster continues its assault, and he wakes up in a room with his wife, thinking he was just having a nightmare, but he realizes he is hallucinating, since he is about to die. The monster grabs onto him, as it proceeds to squeeze him to death, but he remembers how he was trained to inflict as much damage as possible before dying, so he unleashes fire from his body, burning the monster's arm, before he falls to the ground. Zujin prepares to deal the finishing blow, but Mei appears, and protects him with a shield, helping him escape. The next morning, the group searches for Gabimaru and Mei. Hako reveals that there are 7 Tenzins, and we see them gathered in one location, as they discuss how fierce the humans are. Jufa blames Zujin for failing to take down the humans, blasting his head off as he comments on Zujin's ugly appearance, seeing how he's been using too much Tao, and mocks him for using his transformation against a human. The ruler of Kotaku, Rien, stops Jufa, telling him they are a family, and he's the only one who can punish Zujin. Jufa reports how he threw the 2 brothers into the pit, thinking they should have already turned into flowers, but Rien thinks that the humans are different from the ones they have dealt with before, and we see that the brothers were able to escape from the pit. Zujin claims he was able to kill Gabimaru, and they all share a drink, which helps Zujin recover his human form. According to legend, there was a hermit who mastered their art and became a god split into 7 parts, which are now known as the Tenzins. Hako tells this story to everyone, saying he learned it back when he was a child, as he claims he once looked human. He reveals how everyone on the island were humans who lived long lives, but they realized that despite their extended lifespan, they started transforming into trees, and this caused them to slowly lose awareness. But before they completely lost it, they gathered at a particular location to ensure that their souls would reach Horai after death, which explains why there were trees praying close to Horai. He further explains that Horai is the final resting place of souls, but the Tenzins get to choose which souls will enter. Meanwhile, Gabimaru regains consciousness, and he recalls his encounter with Zujin, thinking there must be a way to defeat the Tenzin. He realizes they are not gods, so they can be killed, but he needs to have a plan, knowing he can't do it alone. Fuchi and Tamiya suddenly arrive, as Tamiya comments on his condition, wondering if it's time for him to die. They size each other up, thinking about fighting, but Fuchi tells Tamiya they should focus on gathering information, as he pulls out his sword, wanting to get some answers from Gabimaru without killing him. But Gabimaru bows before them, as he proposes working together, and Tamiya tests him by threatening to strike him down, but Gabimaru doesn't move, so they know he's not trying to fool them. Fuchi asks him why he wants to do this, so Gabimaru tells them about the Tenzins, and they are surprised to learn that such powerful creatures exist. Fuchi doesn't trust him, but Tamiya joins him, wanting to fight the Tenzins, as he reveals how he isn't even interested in the pardon. We learn that Tamiya wants his name to go down in history by defeating the Tenzins, while Fuchi wants to dissect their remains. They decide to work together, and Gabimaru is about to give them more information, when Mei wakes up. Gabimaru is surprised to see that Mei has grown up in such a short period. She calls out Gabimaru's name, and he realizes she can now talk. He thanks her for saving his life, asking her if she's like the Tenzin. Elsewhere, Senda concludes that the religious system on the island is man-made. He thinks the creator of the island just wanted humans that transformed into flowers to return, and he sees it as a clue that could help them find the elixir and escape. Mei tells them about the Tao, which is the power that the Tenzin use, but she can only offer a vague explanation, because she still isn't used to speaking. On the other hand, Hako explains that everything in the world is created by the flow of Tao, and it has something to do with the origin of the universe. Despite his explanation, the group still finds it difficult to understand. Nurugai tries to ambush Shion, but he disarms her, and makes her sheath her sword, saying he'll never teach her how to use it. She implores him to teach her, because she doesn't want to watch her loved ones die. Hearing this, Shion tells her how everything in the world produces unique waves, which is what he uses to see the world around him. He goes on to explain how using the waves also improves one's physical capabilities, which is quite similar to how Hako describes the benefits of mastering Tao. Shion states it's difficult to sense the waves, since one must be in a balanced state of mind. He tells Narugai she isn't wielding the blade properly as he pulls out his sword, demonstrating how to wield it. At that moment, monsters appear around them, and Shion can sense their presence, so he takes them out one by one as he gives Narugai tips for fighting. A group of monsters make their way to Gabimaru and his allies, so Tamiya springs into action, killing all the monsters at once, and he lifts Mei up, telling her to teach him the power of Tao. As more monsters approach them, Gabimaru observes the monsters, and he sees a silhouette behind them. Meanwhile, two of the Tensons discuss how the humans merge into flowers after being thrown into the pit, allowing them to harvest tan efficiently. They think escaping the pit is unlikely, because the humans that are transformed into flowers will stop them as they try to escape. But we see Chobei climbing up the pit as the transformed humans try to stop him, but he powers through, allowing them to reach the surface. Chobei is determined to kill the Tensons, saying their weakness is their lower body, as he points out that the Tensons started regenerating from its lower body, so he suggests aiming for that area, and Toma is impressed by his brother's ability to read the situation. A monster suddenly appears, and it seems willing to talk, saying it received orders from the Tenson to investigate. He introduces himself as a Doshi, saying his colleagues are scouting the other humans on the island. He explains how Doshis are the right hand of the Tenson, because they are capable of reason. The Doshi wants the brothers to return to the pit, so Chobei tries to kick it, but it dodges and counters with a punch. But Chobei stands his ground, grabbing onto the Doshi's arm, and using his brute force to cut it off. The arm regrows, and the Doshi summons monsters to deal with them. Toma swiftly deals with the monsters, as Chobei continues his fight with the Doshi. It senses his Tao as he attacks, and he comments how attacks from one who cannot use Tao are trivial, because he can instantly regenerate from it. It sees a disturbance in Chobei's Tao, seeing it as a blind spot, and Chobei gets slashed, falling to the ground. The Doshi comments on how fragile humans are, and he plans to return him to the pit, but Chobei suddenly drives his fist through the monster's face, and he gets back up. The Doshi wonders how Chobei was able to regenerate, thinking he merged with the plants during his time in the pit. Chobei mentions how he sensed something from the Doshi, and he speculates that it's the key to defeating the Tenson. The Doshi attacks with the intent to kill, but Chobei is able to block the attack. The impact breaks his arms, but it quickly snaps back into place. They continue to exchange blows, and Chobei manages to push the monster back, as it notes that his Tao is continuously growing. Chobei doesn't know what's happening to him, and the monster suggests he is transforming into something that isn't human, but he isn't bothered, saying nothing in the world remains the same. We learn that when the brothers were taken by the bandits, they weren't convinced that the boys could join them because of their privileged upbringing, but Chobei cut his eye to persuade them, and this is how he was accepted into their group. Chobei charges at the Doshi as he endures the energy blasts, and he manages to land a hit on its navel, which makes it cough up blood, confirming that the navel is its weak point. The Doshi jumps back, launching an energy blast, but Chobei manages to dodge it. He mentions how he can now see the energy around its body, and this scares the Doshi, calling on the monsters to help him, but Toma has already defeated them. The monster gathers Tao energy using his hand, but Chobei stomps on it, and he replicates the technique, using it to punch a hole into the Doshi's stomach. He senses the Doshi's Tao, and he realizes it's on the brink of death, so he starts asking questions about the Tenson. At that moment, Toma becomes worried, as he notices marks on Chobei's body, which look like vines, and they appear to be growing. We learn that the scar on Mei's body is similar. Tamiya tries to learn Tao while fighting, asking for Mei's advice, but she tells him he's doing it wrong. They observe Gabimaru as he fights, but Mei notes that he also doesn't get it. Fuchi sees Mei as a mystery, wondering who she is, as Gabimaru recalls how the girl used her power to save him, so he concludes she isn't a normal human. The Doshi leading the pack recognizes Mei, so he attacks Tamiya, who manages to block, but he isn't able to stop the monster from taking Mei. The Doshi says he has been looking for her, revealing how she was banished from the palace, and she disappeared from Horahai. They were forbidden from searching for her, but the monster is happy to stumble upon her. Gabimaru asks what's going on, and the Doshi says she doesn't belong with the humans, as he reveals she feeds off of humans just like the Tenson. The monster implores Mei to return to Horahai, but Mei looks at Gabimaru with a sad look on her face, so he goes to her, saying he doesn't want her to cry. The Doshi's colleague appears, and together, they summon centipedes and butterflies to their side. Tamiya tries to attack, but he is immediately stopped by a Tao attack, and the Doshi proceeds to assault them, but they all get pushed back. Gabimaru wonders why they want Mei, so the Doshi explains how she helps them with their Tao training. They reveal there are 5 steps to mastering Tao, and the most important one requires a partner, since it requires the participants to make love. The doshi explains how all things possess yin and yang energies, and both energies circulate when a male and female join together. The doshi want her because she possesses the highest quality of yin energy, which can be made to circulate with their yang energy. They also reveal that Mei has the same origins as the Tenzin, but she is inferior because, unlike them, she only possesses yin energy, which is the same reason why she was banished from the palace, leaving her as a training partner for the doshis. They ask Mei to return, but Gabimaru becomes enraged hearing this, refusing to let them have her. The doshis transform themselves, similar to how Zujin transformed himself into a flower monster. Tamiya struggles against the butterfly monster, while Gabimaru uses his fire technique to destroy his opponent's arm. The monster fires a barrage of Tao attacks, which Gabimaru dodges even though he can't see. The 2 warriors fall back as the butterflies pursue them, but Gabimaru uses a fire-breathing technique to create a firewall. Gabimaru notes how he can now sense Tao vaguely, but he wants to detect it more precisely. At that moment, Fuchi tells them he has deciphered Mei's words, saying their minds must be both strong and weak to see Tao. Mei touches Gabimaru's hands, helping him sense his own Tao, as Fuchi goes on to explain that Tao requires a specific state of mind, and he tells Gabimaru to weaken his mind. This confuses him at first, but he remembers the moment he shared with Sagiri, and he begins to grasp the concept. He prepares to face the monsters, as Mei comments that Gabimaru's Tao is enormous. The doshi attacks him with Tao blasts, but he clearly sees it approaching, dodging all the attacks, and he dashes toward the monster. As Gabimaru closes the distance, the doshi tries to punch him, but he evades, as he notes that he can now predict attacks from sensing the movement of one's Tao. The monster follows up, but Gabimaru touches its fist, causing its arm to break, and he lands a kick on both of the monsters. Tamiya doesn't want to be upstaged, so he charges at the centipede monster, slashing it in half while Gabimaru burns the butterfly doshi. Meanwhile, the others are able to open the giant door, allowing them to enter Horai, but a Tenzin named Mudan suddenly decapitates Hako. The Tenzin tells them they are the first humans to reach that place, and Yuzuri becomes scared, so she starts running away, but Mudan instantly grabs onto her, saying he just wants to talk. Hako tells them Mudan is a Tenzin, and he reveals he has accelerated Hako's transformation so he will soon lose his awareness. Hako wants his soul to be invited into Horai, but Mudan tells him their religion was a lie invented to maintain order on the island. He adds that the island is a place for conducting human experiments, as he shows them the Kyoshi, which are creatures he made using humans. Mudan says there is no elixir on the island, and he reveals that if a human consumes tan, they will turn into a tree, just like Hako and the other villagers. He tells them their journey has come to an end, telling them to go with him, but Yuzuri uses her substitution jutsu, attacking him from behind, and cutting off his head. They proceed to run away, thinking the threat has been dealt with, but he quickly regenerates, ordering the Kyoshi to attack Yuzuri, who manages to evade. We learn that Yuzuri knows something similar to Tao, which is known as Chi, but she still hasn't mastered it. Mudan invites her to be his Tao training partner, as he uses a Tao attack to blast Sagiri away. As he explains his technique to Yuzuri, Senna cuts him up, and Yuzuri drinks a certain liquid, causing fluids to come out of her body. She reveals that her ninjutsu allows her to secrete the liquids that she swallows, which happens to be snake poison. She uses her ability to bind Mudan, using the poison to burn his skin, before slicing him into pieces. But Mudan regenerates, and he comments on her abilities, seeing it as an application of Tao, but he says she still has room for improvement. Senta and Yuzuri strike at him, but he casually dodges their attacks, before grabbing onto Yuzuri's leg, and pushing Senna back. Hako tells Sagiri about the Tenzin's weakness, as Mudan lectures Yuzuri about Tao. But Sagiri suddenly interrupts them, forcing him to jump away. Mudan notes that Sagiri has an average amount of Tao, thinking she can't do anything, but she launches her sword at his navel and she cuts him open. We learn that the source of Tao is located at the navel, so it serves as the Tenzin's weakness. However, Mudan is unaffected, saying Sagiri hasn't mastered Tao, but Sagiri remains calm, and she suddenly exudes Tao energy, as she launches a slash which scratches Mudan's face. The wound doesn't regenerate, and we learn that Sagiri has been able to sense Tao all along. Mudan prepares to strike Sagiri, but Yuzuri restrains him, and Sagiri prepares to cut him down. He blows Sagiri away, ordering the Kyoshi to deal with Yuzuri, but Senna makes quick work of them. Sagiri continues to pursue Mudan, but he keeps dodging, so her allies cut off his limbs, giving her an opening. However, Mudan takes to the skies, and he bombs them with Tao attacks. As Sagiri takes cover, she realizes her body is reaching its limit, but Yuzuri tells her not to give up, saying she can kill the Tensen. Yuzuri wraps snake poison around Mudan's leg, but he bombs her with Tao attacks, which she endures, before slamming him into the ground. Mudan gets back up, but Sena stabs him from behind, restricting his movements as Sagiri goes in for the kill. She slices through his navel, making him fall to the ground. Mudan is defeated, but Sagiri despairs, knowing the elixir doesn't exist. In a flashback, we learn that Senda never wanted to be an executioner, but his family forced him into it. He studied religion to rationalize killing people, which he was praised for, allowing him to rank up. But since meeting Yuzuri, he became jealous of how free she is, and he started to admire her. Back in the present, Gabimaru stands above the remains of the doshi, thinking he still needs to master the use of Tao. He asks Mei why she followed him, but blood suddenly oozes from his nose as he collapses. Yuzuri notices a number of strange flowers in their area. As she points them out, they suddenly attack her, but Sena shields her, and he starts dreaming about drawing paintings of Yuzuri as he enters eternal bliss. The attack instantly transforms him into flowers, and a huge flower monster appears before them, and Mudan is revealed to be still alive, and he undergoes his transformation. Mudan attacks them with his flowers, but Shion arrives and saves them just in time. He tells Narugai to help them get away, while he prepares to fight against Mudan, recognizing him as a Tensen. He seems to have figured out Tao by sensing the waves of a creature, and he thinks he can kill Mudan by directly cutting his wave. Narugai cuts the roots of the flowers, transforming Senta, and it seems to be able to slow his transformation. Sagiri wonders what they can do for him, and Yuzuri decides to try and heal him. Meanwhile, Shion fights against Mudan, and he even manages to knock him back. Yuzuri is surprised he is so strong, and Sagiri can see that Mudan isn't able to heal from Shion's attacks. But Shion took some damage in the exchange, and flowers start to grow on his body. He instantly cuts all of the flowers off, but Sagiri thinks he is losing too much blood. Sagiri wants to help him, so Narugai suggests they all attack together, but Yuzuri claims she is all out of energy. Narugai suddenly hugs her, and she hugs Sagiri as well, and they wonder what she is doing. Narugai says she used to do it to her grandfather to energize him, and she tried it on Shion as well, which seemed to help him recover. Sagiri thinks it has something to do with Tao, but they quickly go to help Shion. Sagiri tells him about the weak point in the navel, but Shion notes that Mudan has 2 navels, and just being scratched by his attack would be fatal. Sagiri reveals they covered themselves in Yuzuri's mucus, which should be able to prevent scratches and stop flowers from growing, so they plan to act as decoys for him. Mudan appears behind Narugai, and Sagiri protects her, cutting down Mudan's vines. Shion is impressed at her ability to sense waves, and she is able to use it to predict the attacks. Shion prepares to attack, but Mudan starts blasting him with energy attacks. Sagiri and Narugai cut down some of his vines, and Shion takes the chance to cut one of Mudan's legs. Mudan's regeneration becomes slower, and Sagiri thinks they could actually win, but she is reaching her limits. Mudan gets back up, unleashing his energy at all of them, but Shion continues to charge forward, remembering how he was forced to let Tenza die. He refuses to run away again, and Sagiri and Narugai manage to pin Mudan's hands. Shion gathers all his power into his blade, but as he is about to strike, he wonders if the navel is really its weakness, because he doesn't sense waves coming from that area. Time is running out, but Senda suddenly tells him the weakness is the center of the flower, because that's where all the nutrients in a flower are located, and Shion slashes it, allowing him to defeat Mudan just in time. Sagiri rushes to check up on Senda, but Yuzuri says he doesn't have much more time. She reveals she only has 1 more salve, but she thinks it would be better used on Shion. Sagiri doesn't want to accept this, but Yuzuri says she is just a realist, telling Sena he isn't going to make it. She tells him to be true to himself in his final moments, and Senta imagines being in the arms of the one he admired. After this, they wonder what they should do next, and Sagiri refuses to lose any more people, no longer seeing them as criminals and executioners, but she decides to do everything she can so that they can all make it back alive. Meanwhile, Gabimaru wakes up and he is instantly on edge. Tamiya tells him to relax, and Gabimaru wonders where they are. Fuchi reveals they found a cave halfway up the valley, and it seems Gabimaru has lost his memory. Sagiri's group continues forward, and they are surprised to see a number of statues and temples. They decide to get some rest in one of the buildings, and Yuzuri finds them a change of clothes. Shion reviews the information that they have so far. He notes that Tao is a power that everyone possesses, and mastering it will allow a person to achieve superhuman abilities, but he says they have to be careful using it, because Tao is life itself, and if they use too much, it could cause physical or mental changes, or even affect memories and consciousness, and in the worst case, overuse will likely lead to death. Yuzuri wonders what they should do since the elixir of life doesn't exist, because the shogun won't accept that, but Sagiri tells them how Gabimaru told her it exists, since his village chief was actually immortal. However, Yuzuri thinks that might have just been an illusion, because shinobi often use them to brainwash and control children when they are young, saying they did the same thing in her village. Yuzuri also finds the story about Gabimaru's wife strange, because shinobi are just pawns. She thinks his wife might not even exist, and she could have been another one of the chief's illusions used to motivate him. We see Gabimaru has completely lost his memory, only remembering that he is Gabimaru the Hollow, and he plays along with the other three to get information about where he is. Mei asks if he is okay, and he says he is fine, but she can sense a disturbance in his Tao. Sagiri keeps watch at night, and Shion joins her. She thinks about all the people they have lost, and she worries about Gabimaru. Shion wonders if she likes him, but Sagiri finds it all too sad that he is trying so hard to get back to his wife, but she might not even exist. Even though he's a killer, she doesn't think he is a bad person, so she hopes that he can be reunited with her. But that's where this video ends. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. In a world filled with magic, we see a group of soldiers as they go up against a demonic being known as the Corpse God. The Corpse God summons magical weapons, launching them against the soldiers, and easily taking them out. The captain receives news that the legendary hero is on his way, so he orders his men to retreat, knowing that only the hero can take on such a threat. The legendary hero, Sagura, makes his way to the Corpse God. They engage in combat, and the Corpse God uses his magic to attack the hero, but he fails to deal damage to Sagura, who uses his sword to defend himself. The Corpse God gathers the souls of the dead, summoning an undead dragon that charges at Sagura, but the hero easily cuts it in half with his enchanted sword. They continue to exchange blows, and Sagura manages to push him back. Seeing that he's at a disadvantage, the Corpse God summons a skeleton army to defeat the hero. Sagura uses his evil eye, allowing him to see the souls of the dead, and we learn that the Corpse God possesses the same ability. Sagura charges at the skeleton army, jumping over them and launching a fireball toward the ceiling. This causes the ceiling to collapse, raining rocks down on his enemies. Sagura manages to land a hit on the Corpse God, exposing a brain in a jar, which is revealed to be its true form. The Corpse God prepares to use a powerful spell, but Sagura charges with all of his might. He thrusts his sword, managing to pierce through it, causing an enormous explosion that pierces through the dark sky, but his memory suddenly becomes cloudy as he struggles to remember the result of the battle, and it turns out that the Corpse God used reincarnation magic. As he wakes up in an alley, with a wound on his neck, the Corpse God looks around, struggling to understand what's going on, and he finds himself in a modern city, unable to recognize anything. He is suddenly spotted by a drone, and the operator, Kuruya, is surprised, because he had confirmed that the boy was already dead. He calls his team, informing them that their target is still alive, and Kuruya wonders how the boy can still be walking around with a slit throat. Meanwhile, the Corpse God is still having a hard time taking everything in, wondering where he is, because everything is so foreign to him. He observes the people, seeing that everyone is happy, so he thinks that this world must be peaceful. He thinks about his own world, unsure about how he can return, but at that moment, he is approached by two policemen, who try to talk to him, but he can't understand what they're saying. He slowly starts to understand them, as he pulls linguistic information from his body's brain. He tells the officers that he's okay, and introduces himself as Polka. The policemen are shocked to see the wound on his neck, telling him he needs medical assistance. But a strange girl suddenly steps on the officer's head, glad to see that Polka is alive, grabbing him by the arm and dashing off with him. They reach an alley, where the girl introduces herself as Misaki. Polka begins to remember who she is, when Misaki suddenly throws him into the air, claiming to be checking if he is really alive. But she suddenly pulls out a crowbar, revealing that she was the one who killed him the first time. Polka starts running away, while Kuruya watches them through his drone, wondering why someone would pay to have a 16-year-old boy killed, but he knows that they won't get paid unless Polka dies. Polka becomes exhausted, commenting on his new body's limitations, since it took all of his strength just to run away, and it seems to have no capacity for magic. He thinks about what he should do, knowing that one fatal wound would lead to his death. Misaki shows up behind him, throwing her knives, which he narrowly dodges. She seems to be enjoying the hunt, charging at Polka, who struggles to block her attacks. He tries to run away, but he falls as Misaki throws a dagger, which hits his leg, but he gets back up, pulling out the dagger and throwing it back at Misaki. Misaki is impressed, as she admits that he intimidates her, fearing that she will fall for him if she's not careful. Polka enters a strange room, wondering what it's for, when Misaki catches up to him, throwing a dagger at his leg, causing him to fall to the ground. She reveals that it was once an execution ground for the Yakuza, and there are rumors that ghosts haunt the room, so people try to avoid it. Polka confirms that the rumors are true, as he uses his evil eye to see the souls of the dead. He realizes that the evil eye is a power of the soul, so he can still use it in Polka's body. Misaki is about to finish him off, but he gathers the powers from the souls in the room, calling forth a monstrous arm, which impales Misaki and instantly kills her. Back in the other world, the corpse god is seemingly defeated, but Segura wonders about his final spell, doubting that the corpse god was truly defeated, because his soul vanished too quickly. His companion informs him that the soul of the corpse god is no longer in their world, but the hero still has his doubts. In a flashback, we learn that the corpse god could not live a peaceful life because of the evil eye. He was sold by his parents to the court sorcerers, and he fought countless battles as a necromancer until the empire fell, but all he really wanted was peace. He eventually lives in peace with humans, even finding love, but the soldiers start hunting down necromancers, because they enslave the spirits of the dead. They end up killing the people close to him during their hunt, causing him to become enraged, as he goes on a quest for vengeance, tormenting people for centuries, and killing countless soldiers, while he stays in an abandoned coal mine. Despite all the bloodshed, he still desires peace, but even as he waited for centuries, he still couldn't find it. He couldn't die a natural death, so he waited for someone who could defeat him, so that he could be reincarnated in a new body, and finally find peace. Back in the present, Polka is surprised to see that Misaki is already dead, wanting to ask her some questions, and he is worried that he will be hunted down by the police if they find her body. Kuruya saw everything with his drone, and he starts questioning his sanity when he receives a call from his boss, Clarissa, asking what's taking the mission so long, so he sends her the video file of what just happened. In another flashback, we learn that Misaki's parents truly loved her, allowing her to enjoy her childhood, but her life was ruined when her parents were murdered before her eyes by a man named Jinba. Because of this, she trained to be an assassin, eventually finding the man and making him suffer. Misaki reveals that she is not killing him for revenge, but because she enjoys killing her targets, which just happen to be bad people. She eventually receives the mission to kill Polka, and she accepts it, wanting to know what it's like to kill someone innocent. Misaki hits him with a crowbar, making her realize that killing innocent people is also fun. But she starts to question her existence, thinking that she's better off dead, even thinking about taking her own life, when suddenly, she receives a call from Kuruya, informing her that the target is still alive. Back in the present, Misaki wakes up, surprised to see that her wound is healed. Polka reveals she is technically dead, but she was reborn through magic. They are suddenly surrounded by a group of men, as Clarissa appears before them. Clarissa hugs her, checking to see if she is alive, but realizes she has no pulse, as Polka explains she is pretty much like a zombie. 40 minutes earlier, Kuruya tells Clarissa about Polka's whereabouts, so she finds him, asking him about the sigils that she's seeing, as Polka uses his magic to heal Misaki. He asks them who they are, and Clarissa claims that they are Misaki's friends. Polka reveals that Misaki's brain and soul are still intact, but someone needs to use resurrection magic on her, but everyone is confused, because nobody can use magic in this world. He wants everyone to think that they were merely hallucinating, as he threatens to attack them with his weapons. They point their guns at him, but he pins one of them down with a huge skeletal hand, saying that he has no idea how fragile humans are without magic. They suddenly learn that a nearby building is on fire, and Polka's magical eye sees it, but it immediately gets sliced by one of Clarissa's companions. Clarissa tells him that the building is a safe haven for orphan children, and Polka remembers the children that were dear to him in his past life, so he decides to help out. Kuruya's drone leads the way, and he uses his magic to swing around the town, allowing him to travel faster. Upon reaching the building, he uses his evil eye, allowing him to see the life force of the children that are trapped. He uses a skeletal arm to throw him into the building, where he sees 4 souls with the children who are struggling. They are the souls of the parents of the orphaned children. He asks for their help, making skeletal bodies for them to possess. The skeletons rescue the children, putting them on a huge skeletal hand that lays them down on the ground. Polka manages to escape, but the event gets posted on social media, and everyone learns about Polka's skeletons. Kuruya thinks about what kind of person Polka is, because he didn't value Misaki's life, but he saved the children from the building, making him think that Polka is different from them. He tells Clarissa that she shouldn't mess with Polka, seeing him as a monster, and Clarissa agrees with him, telling him that Misaki is about to wake up. Back in the present, Polka realizes that children still suffer in this world, so he wonders how he can find peace. Clarissa asks him what peace means to him, telling him that she can achieve peace by having lots of money. She asks Polka about his goal, and he explains that he knows nothing about the place, but he would like to use his necromancy to earn some money, wanting power and a place to belong, saying that it would help him attain peace. Clarissa wants him to join her team. She is sure that he is not the same person that they wanted to kill, and she offers to help him adjust to the world. The videos of Polka's skeletons continue to circulate online, which impresses Misaki. Polka uses his skeletons to help move furniture into their new home, and they hang out together. Misaki reveals that she is actually thrilled to hang out with the man who killed her, because she's never been killed before. We learn that Clarissa owns the building they're in, and it's called the Torture Building, and it's actually filled with ghosts. Polka begins to doubt that he is in another world, because the animals are similar to the ones he used to know, but he is happy because the ENGDUB religion doesn't exist in this world, explaining how he used to be hunted down by the religion, because he was an abomination known as the Corpse God. Polka thinks he will finally be able to achieve peace if he can find the person who wanted to have his body killed. Clarissa knows the person, but keeps it a secret, allowing him to use the building in exchange. Polka decides to investigate on his own, knowing that Clarissa won't accept any more contracts on his life. But Kuruya reveals that Clarissa is not the only intermediary for assassins, although he acknowledges that not many people could kill Polka, although he mentions a person called Lemmings, but quickly dismisses the idea. Kuruya wonders if it was a good idea to bring Misaki back to life, and Polka reveals that the body's owner told him to forgive her, revealing that his soul is now in the drone. Polka has the power to make people's souls inhabit vessels, and he admits that human lives are like toys to him, making Kuruya think he is trouble. Polka thinks about earning money, asking them about the jobs in the world. Misaki suggests doing some assassinations, saying he should be good at it, because he was able to kill her. At that moment, they have a visitor who wants to meet Misaki, and he asks for her help, because he is being targeted by hitmen from another gang. Misaki tells him that she is in the middle of another job, but Polka interrupts, accepting the request, and this makes Misaki accept it as well. They receive information that the hitmen are in an abandoned warehouse, revealing that they used to work for ENGDUB. Misaki dashes toward the warehouse, but she immediately gets ambushed. Misaki fights them off, calling them wimps, but she is suddenly shot from behind by the man who asked for her help. The man reveals that they are there to avenge ENGDUB, ordering his men to kill her as he turns his back. He sees Polka, who grabs everyone's attention, as Misaki grabs hold of a thug's leg. Polka informs them that Misaki is a zombie, so she can't be killed that easily. Misaki gets back on her feet and sends a thug flying, while Kuruya calls Polka, asking him if he knew that it was a trap. Polka says that he didn't, but he accepted the request because there were souls of children that were haunting the man. He summons his giant skeletal arms, crushing all the men into a boulder and allowing the children's spirits to rest in peace. After that, Misaki is happy to see that the bullet holes in her body have already healed, and Kuruya wonders why Polka listened to the children's souls, despite seeing human lives as toys. But Polka reveals that he still takes good care of human lives, because they can make children smile. This makes Kuruya realize that they are different from Polka, seeing themselves as scum, because of the way they treat their targets. The other members of ENGDUB's gang want to get revenge, opening their armory, but Lemmings attacks them, wiping out everyone in their gang. Polka reads a book about vampires, claiming that they are real in his world, and he tells Misaki that he could turn her into one if he has enough mana, which makes her excited. Meanwhile, Clarissa receives a phone call from the client who ordered the hit on Polka, but she decides to terminate their contract. We see a man named Kozaburo as he apologizes because he is unable to pay for his beer, which costs 60,000 yen, while a drunk man named Tsubaki is looking for Clarissa as he mentions that bars are ripping off the customers. Back in their room, Polka explains that Misaki's body can self-repair and resist decomposition, as well as being slightly stronger than before. He advises her to eat raw meat if she ever gets seriously injured, and reveals that her saliva can now cause paralysis. She tries it out on him, biting him, which causes him to fall to the ground. Misaki asks Karuya if he also wants to try, but he refuses, calling her a monster. The word monster reminds Polka about the hero who defeated him, thinking about whether there are any people like him in this world. The police investigate the area where Polka crushed the thugs. Lemmings makes his appearance, shattering the boulder that contained the thugs before disappearing. The police hear the noise, rushing to the scene, and they find the bodies of the thugs. Meanwhile, we see Kozaburo as he finishes beating up the men that were scamming him. He receives a call, and so does Tsubaki at the bar, who immediately leaves after receiving the call. Polka realizes that the world isn't so different from where he came from, so he starts to think that the two worlds could be connected. Karuya mentions the thugs he killed, but Polka reveals that they are actually still alive, but they might have gone insane while trapped in the boulder. Kozaburo and Tsubaki make their way to the scene, and see the bodies of the thugs that look like human knots. They begin their investigation, revealing that they are detectives of a special police force. At the police station, we learn that Tsubaki and Kozaburo have plenty of experience in dealing with paranormal cases. Tsubaki reveals that there are 3 suspects that are still at large: the Grim Reaper, the fire-breathing bug, and lemmings. Tsubaki reveals that they found a footprint of lemmings at the scene of the incident. They are also looking into the case of the skeletons that saved the orphan children, thinking that it is connected to the fire-breathing bug, who probably started the fire. They consider the possibility that the 2 incidents are connected, but despite the strange nature of the incidents, Tsubaki tells them not to panic, reminding them that the criminals they've caught have turned out to be just ordinary humans. Meanwhile, Polka puts the soul of his body's original owner in a stuffed animal so that Karuya can use his drone again. He apologizes to the original Polka for assuming his identity, promising to make it up to him. Misaki sees the stuffed animal, finding it cute, and hugs it, which makes it turn red. Karuya wonders what it's trying to say, and Polka says that he could make human vocal cords to help him speak, but he doesn't have enough mana. He reveals that, as a necromancer, he can obtain more mana by exorcising ghosts, explaining that the souls in their building are a great source of mana. But Karuya says that there aren't many other buildings that are similar. However, Polka says that it's okay, because the gemstones in this world are an even greater source of mana. They go to a jewelry store, where Polka is surprised to see that the gemstones are incredibly expensive, saying that the gemstones in his world are super cheap in comparison. He plans to save money to buy all of the gemstones in the store, but the shopkeeper tells him that it would cost him almost 4 billion yen to buy everything. After they leave the store, Misaki asks him why he didn't just drain the mana from the stones, and Polka reveals that it would cause the stones to crumble, making it unfair to the shopkeeper. They suddenly encounter Kozaburo, who immediately lunges past them, trying to grab the drone. Meanwhile, Tsubaki finally meets Clarissa at the bar, telling her about the human knots and the building fire, wanting to know if her group is involved with the cases. Kozaburo apologizes for startling them, knowing that Karuya is the one controlling the drone, and he tries to talk to Karuya, but Polka interrupts him, telling him that Karuya is his friend. But Kozaburo calls Karuya scum, telling Polka he should cut his ties with him. Polka remembers his friends that were killed during his past life, so he uses his powers, allowing him to grab the drone from Kozaburo, who becomes curious to learn more about him. Karuya warns them that Kozaburo is extremely dangerous, having witnessed him destroy a gang by himself. He warns Polka not to use his powers, claiming he won't be able to live a peaceful life if he does. Kozaburo begins to question Polka, which worries Karuya, because he knows that if Polka reveals his connection to Clarissa, it would trigger an investigation. So Karuya calls Kozaburo, telling him that Polka and Misaki are just his gaming buddies. He surrounds Kozaburo with drones, warning him that the video of him hassling innocent kids will go viral on the internet. But Kozaburo is unfazed, calling Karuya cocky, as he reveals Karuya sold out his old buddies to save his own skin. Misaki suddenly appears behind Kozaburo, knocking him down, and claiming she was just defending herself against a creep. She runs away with Polka, while Kozaburo tries to chase after them, but he can't find them, because they used Polka's skeletal arm to help them escape. Karuya tells Polka that Kozaburo was telling the truth, admitting that he will reveal their secrets just to save his own life, but Polka tells him his life is more valuable than his secrets. At the police station, Kozaburo asks an officer to investigate Misaki's footprints on his body. She immediately recognizes it, matching it to a footprint they found at the scene of the human knot case, causing Kozaburo to get excited, as he finds the case intriguing. A veteran officer reveals that he once saw Lemmings in the past, claiming that he took down a group of men while they were raining bullets on him. The officer doubts that they could take him on, but he knows that the special division is all they have. Meanwhile, Lemmings has been invisible inside the police station the whole time, and he checks out the photo of Misaki's footprint. Tsubaki is now drunk at the bar, talking about the paranormal cases he handled, and even mentions the skeletons in the building fire. Clarissa knows that he is doing this to taunt their group, but they think that they can't let him dig too deep. The bar girls consider warning Polka, but he happens to arrive at that moment. Tsubaki notices them, and he receives a message with the description of the person involved in the human knots case, which seems to match Misaki, so he asks the pair to spend time with him. Meanwhile, Karuya sees Kozaburo heading to the bar, where the group seems to be enjoying their time together. Karuya warns them to leave, but he's too late, and Kozaburo has already arrived with his men. He joins the group, as Tsubaki reveals that they just want to ask them some questions, but the room suddenly darkens, and the pair immediately hides from the detectives. Clarissa insists it wasn't one of her tricks, while Polka uses his night vision to see in the dark. But he becomes afraid as he sees Lemmings on the ceiling. As Clarissa lights a candle, Lemmings makes his entrance, seemingly ready to fight. Clarissa knows that he is not there to kill anyone, but Kozaburo thinks about beating him up, since he is a wanted person. Polka uses his evil eye, seeing countless ghosts around Lemmings, and he realizes that he killed all of them. Lemmings attacks the officers, blowing them away like ragdolls, and Kozaburo tries to fight back, but his attacks don't work against Lemmings, who doesn't even take him seriously. Lemmings dashes toward Misaki, taking her away, as Polka thinks about using his powers to get her back, but he's too worried about the officers seeing his magic. Kozaburo continues to pursue Lemmings, but he is no match for him. Polka realizes that Lemmings is a human who has pushed beyond his limits, much like Sagrua, so he knows that he can't stop him, but he uses his magic to attack Lemmings anyway. Tsubaki sees the sigils, wondering what they are, but Clarissa covers the candle to darken the room. Polka grabs onto Misaki using his skeletal arms, saying that they should escape, while Tsubaki uses the flashlight on his phone, allowing him to see the skeletal arm. Lemmings charges at Polka, who tries to take him down with his magic, but he fails to land a hit on Lemmings, who can also apparently see in the dark. Lemmings manages to break the skeletal arm holding onto Misaki, and Misaki panics as he approaches her. However, he whispers something to her, and they start talking casually. Misaki tries to paralyze him with her bite, but she can't bite through his bandages. She suddenly stabs his leg with the fork that contains her saliva, making him dazed, as Polka uses the souls haunting Lemmings to cast a spell, summoning a giant skeleton to attack him and forcing Lemmings to flee. After that, Lemmings reports to his boss, Takaru, telling him that Jinba was already dead, and that Polka is still alive. Karuya is surprised to learn that they have survived after encountering Lemmings, who got his name because of his ability to go anywhere like a rat. Polka thanks Misaki for helping him out, and Misaki says that it's okay because he also does the same thing for her. He remembers his master's words about how he should help people if he wants to, knowing he is going to live a long life as a necromancer, so he should just do what he wants, without thinking about how long something is going to last. Polka tells his friends that he wants to learn more about them, saying that he wants to enjoy peace with them. Polka decides to start a business, where he will use his magic to make money, demonstrating that he can make a soul possess a pen to write its ideas on paper. He shows them the sign for his business, and Karuya doesn't like the idea, but the soul has something else in mind. Polka starts acting as a fortune teller, impressing the people with his abilities, as he allows the soul to guide him, and this allows them to make a fortune. It's revealed that the soul actually knows how to do fortune telling, even telling them how to do it. Karuya does his research, passing on the information to Polka, who uses his evil eye to gather even more information from the spirits with the client. They split the profits between them, even giving some to the real Polka, but the real Polka doesn't want any because he didn't work for it. Karuya reveals that Polka was from a rich family, as a group of men enter their room. The twins named Kazuki and Shizuki greet them, calling Polka their uncle. Polka thinks about fooling them, so he covers his head, telling them that he is the corpse god, but they don't believe him, seeing him as a weirdo. Kazuki thinks that Polka ran away from home because of the people around him. She sits with them, wanting to try out their fortune-telling, but they tell her to leave and visit their shop when it opens. Kazuki refuses to leave, calling them peasants, and she starts to argue with Karuya, but her bodyguards stop her because they know that Karuya is recording the conversation. Karuya proceeds to provoke her, but Polka tells him to stop because he notices that Kazuki is about to cry. He hugs the twins, telling them they both have a future and promises to protect them. Polka talks to the misshapen spirit behind the twins, telling it not to worry as it continues to beg someone to help the children. As they leave, Polka notes that the spirit is not evil, but it has gone half mad. Karuya tells him he has a soft spot for children, and Polka reveals that they remind him of the children in his past life. Karuya gives them information about the Shinoyama group, where Polka is the second son of the patriarch named Rosen, and he could claim a share of Rosen's inheritance if he passes away. Karuya speculates that this must be why someone ordered a hit on him, thinking that a relative must want him dead, so going home could be dangerous for him. Polka tells them about his bodyguards during his past life, and he tries to disguise a skeleton as a guard, but it doesn't look close to a human, so they turn to Misaki, thinking she would be a good fit. On their way home, the twins encounter Takaru, who asks them about Polka, and he learns that Polka is returning home, so he looks forward to seeing him. He warns the twins to take care, saying it would be a shame if there was another accident, like the one that happened to their sister, revealing her to be the spirit that is following them. Polka and Misaki visit the Shinoyama house, and Polka is amazed by its size. They are greeted by the twins, as well as Takaru, who asks about his companion, and to his surprise, Misaki politely introduces herself. They move to the dining room, and Misaki makes up a story of how Polka saved her life when she was about to jump off a building, and it turns out she actually comes from a well-off family that once helped Takaru when he was younger. We learn more about the Shinoyama family. Polka is the son of Rosen's second wife, while Karuya warns him about Takaru, who is actually his nephew. Karuya mentions he is 26, but also the president of the Shinoyama security group, which has a notorious reputation for being shady. Misaki is suddenly hugged by Takaru's wife Kiri, who finds her story touching, offering to help her if she is ever in trouble, and they welcome her as a friend. Polka is impressed at how well Misaki is playing her part, so he wants to do his best as well, but Shizuki suddenly interrogates him about the shark on his shoulder, after seeing it could move. Polka wonders where the rest of his family is, and Kazuki tells him they are all at work, so they are the only ones at the house. But Rosen suddenly enters, reminding them that he is also there, and Kiri says he shouldn't be walking around with his health. Polka apologizes to him for running away from home, but he is just glad that he is back. He says he overheard Misaki's story, and wants to hear more about it, so he tells Polka to follow him. They move to a private room, and Polka tells him about what he has been up to since he left. Polka thinks he is doing a good job fooling his father, but Rosen suddenly asks him who he is. Polka is confused, and Rosen says that although he looks like his son, he is sure he is a different person. Polka says he is being ridiculous, but Rosen suddenly pulls a sword on him, saying that a father can recognize his own son. He asks if the real Polka is still alive, but suddenly, Polka senses that the twins are in danger, mentioning how he promised to protect them, and Rosen lets him go. As Polka runs off, there is a mysterious girl in the room that tells Rosen he should have killed the imposter while he had the chance, but he says he just couldn't do it. There is suddenly an explosion in the distance, and there is a flashback to the twins, and Kazuki tells her sister that she lost her purse in the forest. Their sister Suzuka goes out and finds the purse, but she ends up coming across her cousins, plotting the murder of the twins. Suzuka rushes to warn them, but ends up being burnt to death, and ending up as the spirit that follows them around, begging for someone to save them. Back in the present, the twins hear the explosion, and they are told there is a fire, and the man tells them to evacuate. As the twins follow the man away, Suzuka begs them not to go. Meanwhile, we see Tsubaki and Kozaburo as they pay a visit to a man named Tenya, a troublemaker also known as the Phantom Solitaire, to see if he has any information about the fire incident. Tenya is surprised seeing the skeletons, and Tsubaki mentions they have connected the case to the fire-breathing bug, mentioning the signature he leaves behind. Tsubaki theorizes that the fire-breathing bug must infiltrate their targets in disguise, taking their time to prepare and strike when no one's looking, like a bug chewing through a house. The kids are led to an escape tunnel, but Kazuki realizes something is wrong. The man reveals his true intentions, while Suzuka tries to stop him, but can't actually do anything. As the man approaches the twins, Misaki suddenly appears, kicking the man away, and telling Suzuka she is there to save the kids, even though she can't see her. The man gets back up, removing his disguise, mentioning how he was looking forward to feasting on the kids. Misaki tells the twins to run, so they quickly get away. The man introduces himself as Zaku, the killer of killers, and he seems to be aware of Misaki's identity. He suddenly lights the whole room on fire, but Misaki charges straight at him, causing him to wonder if she is even human. Misaki finds it strange he isn't going after the kids, but the man reveals there is nowhere for them to run. The twins wonder if they are being punished for what happened to Suzuka, and they swear to apologize to her if they see her again. The ceiling collapses above them, but Polka manages to arrive just in time, using his skeletal arms to catch the debris. He assures them they have a bright future, and that Suzuka is not mad at them. They manage to make it outside, and Takara thinks about cleaning up the mess. We see the cousin who was behind the attack, thinking that the fire-breathing bug must have taken out the twins, but he is suddenly boxed in as a motorcycle approaches, and the man is taken care of. Back at the mansion, Zaku is surprised the twins managed to survive. He decides to retreat, but Polka catches him. He is disguised as a maid, but Polka can see his soul, and notes that he is being haunted by the servants who he stole faces from. Misaki suddenly appears, kicking him into a wall, and she is glad to be a zombie, which helped her survive the fire. Zaku tells them not to get cocky, using his gloves and starting another fire. He claims that as a bug, he will persist no matter what. Polka wonders if he has enough mana to break through, but he suddenly senses another presence, and Lemming suddenly appears, taking out the man. But he signals them to keep quiet, and he vanishes once again, leaving them feeling confused. Zaku ends up getting taken in by the police, and he thinks about how to make his escape. But the fire-breathing bug's signature suddenly appears on the roof, and we learn he is a fake. He suddenly bursts into flames, causing an explosion, and we see a mysterious girl that watches from a distance. Rosen asks Polka to explain everything, but Polka can tell they are being listened to, saying they should have some privacy. Rosen orders his servants to leave, and Polka tells him the truth, revealing he is from another world, even showing his magical eye to add credibility to his story. Rosen points his sword at Misaki, since she was the one who killed his son, but the real Polka interferes, trying to tell his father to stop. Rosen realizes that his son is in the shark toy, and he starts laughing, seeing how much his son enjoys being in the toy, so he puts his sword away. Rosen suggests moving the corpse god's soul into an artificial body, but the real Polka wants to be the one to have the robot body, saying he wants the perks that come with it. Rosen thinks that since Polka is still a target, it's actually safer having the corpse god in his body, and since they helped save his grandkids, he lets them off the hook. Later, Misaki grabs onto the real Polka, offering her apology to him, and he seems to accept it. At that moment, the twins rush over, thanking Polka and Misaki for saving them. Misaki is touched to hear this, but Polka tells them not to thank him, and that they should thank their guardian spirit instead. As they walk away, Misaki wonders if he will make a contract with Suzuka, who is now at peace, but Polka tells her that it's not yet time. Meanwhile, at the detention facility, Kozaburo and Tsubaki learn that the real fire-breathing bug killed her imitator, but Tenya thinks that it's nothing, as he is more interested in the skeleton case. He wants the detectives to show him a video of the skeleton, but Tsubaki tells him he needs to trade information for it, but Tenya says he will just have to see it for himself as the lights go out. Kozaburo turns on a flashlight, but they are surprised to see Tenya has disappeared. The detectives hold an emergency meeting, informing everyone about the Phantom Solitaire's escape. We learn that Tenya is responsible for a number of crimes, but he became notorious after he kidnapped the Prime Minister, dropping a black cloth onto him and making him disappear without a trace. When the Prime Minister was released, he had no memory of the kidnapping, saying he just found himself in a manga cafe. Tenya ended up turning himself in, saying he was bothered by the audience's indifference because he wanted the attention of the real magicians. Tenya wanted one of them to reach out to him so he can have proof that real magic exists, but he didn't hear anything from them. The police are baffled by his statement, thinking he's gone nuts, and they beat him up before taking him into custody. To this day, Tsubaki still doesn't know if Tenya was telling the truth, noting that his superhuman technique wasn't even the worst thing about him. Meanwhile, Polka buys a radio, wanting to use it to gather information. He turns it on, and they are surprised to hear news about Zaku's death, and they also hear news about Tanya's escape. The police are also surprised to hear news about the Phantom Solitaire's escape, because Tsubaki had imposed media restrictions. Kuruya recognizes the Phantom Solitaire, saying he is an urban legend like Lemmings, but unlike Lemmings, he has received exposure in the media. The police are surprised to learn that they can't change the channel, and the reporter removes his glasses, revealing that he is Tenya, as he announces his return to the public, telling everyone his performance will resume the following week. He ends the broadcast, and Tsubaki thinks he bought airtime from a prisoner known as the Grocer, who does business even while behind bars. Tenya approaches a man he recognizes as the fire-breathing bug. The man doesn't talk to him, and Tenya suddenly gets a call. He realizes it's from the man, but he's confused about why they don't just talk in person. The man wonders how he was found out, and suddenly tries to attack Tenya. The man burns the area around them, and Tenya is impressed by his ability. Tenya uses his cards to defend himself, scattering cards around the area, as he gleefully runs away, saying he likes waste. Tenya holds onto balloons to escape the flame, but the balloons start bursting, so he falls to the ground, and seems to get consumed by the fire. But Tenya is still alive, and he starts running away, as he uses a shield of cards to block the flames, and disappear. He reappears on top of the man's umbrella, revealing how he just fell for his illusion, and he can tell there is also a trick behind the man's fire. Disappointed he can't use real magic, Tenya tells him that something foreign has entered their world, and suggests the man will see it as a bug that he will want to eliminate. Meanwhile, Polka's niece, Sayo, visits them, together with her attendant Xiaoyu, and she tells them she will be staying with them. Polka wonders what she's doing there, and she reveals that her sharks burned up, making them confused, as Misaki starts talking to her about sharks. So Xiaoyu explains how her bedroom was lost in the fire, along with all her shark toys. He shows them a message from Rosen, who asks Polka to let them stay in their place, saying it would be convenient to have 2 of his people in the building. Polka can sense that more people are watching their building, thinking Rosen decided to send his security, but he considers the possibility that Sayo could be behind the attempt on Polka's life. The next day, Polka finds Sayo in her shark sleeping bag, saying she has no energy for the day. Misaki thinks about cleaning up an empty room for their new housemates, and buying a mattress for them, but they claim that they don't need one, since Sayo is happy with her sleeping bag, and Xiaoyu says he can sleep while standing up. Xiaoyu states that he will look after Sayo, preparing a meal for her, as he reveals that the Shinoyama residence is buzzing with police. We see Tsubaki and Kozaburo interviewing Takaru about the fire. Tsubaki suggests it could have been the work of the fire-breathing bug, and Takaru reveals that the fire-breathing bug has always been a thorn in their side, causing trouble for their group, so he wonders when the police would capture him. He reminds Tsubaki about Tenya's escape, and he tells them that they should be looking for Tenya instead of chatting with him. The detectives walk away, as Kozaburo states that Takaru seems to be the kind of guy who uses violence to solve problems. Tsubaki says they might have to throw down with the Shinoyamas, showing a picture of Polka with the family. They know Polka is the younger son of Rosen, and they think that either Polka or Takaru could be at the center of the cases they've had for the past month. Sayo and Xiaoyu move to another room, and they are left there for the evening. While Sayo is sleeping, Xiaoyu gets up, listening to Polka and Kuruya as they discuss what to do with them. He doesn't know why Rosen trusts Polka, but he is determined to expose Polka, thinking he's up to something. We learn that Rosen ordered him to go to the building, and he revealed that Polka is a fake, but he's not their enemy. So he gave Xiaoyu the mission to keep Sayo and the fake Polka safe, but Xiaoyu is reluctant. Xiaoyu considers killing both Polkas, thinking he would make a better son for Rosen. In a flashback, we see Xiaoyu lying on a hospital bed with his limbs cut off. His father thinks about turning him into a Tingyu, which is a living child whose body is used for cultivating poison. Xiaoyu begins to lose his mind after hearing this, but Rosen arrives, telling his father not to be so barbaric. His father explains that the people in their clan are just tools, so Rosen offers to buy Xiaoyu with his group's latest tech. Rosen thinks about giving him some prosthetics, and he smiles as he takes him in. Back in the present, Xiaoyu continues to eavesdrop, while Clarissa reveals that the Shinoyamas also have connections in the criminal society. She thinks they were just hired to kill Polka, because the family's assassins can't get involved in the situation. Clarissa knows that Xiaoyu's family, the Leis, serve as the Shinoyama's assassins, and they are known for using special methods to get the job done. Xiaoyu hears Polka talking about a dragon from his world, who takes the form of a beautiful woman to seduce royalty, but she fell in love with a general, so they eloped when the empire fell. They start talking about more dragons, and Xiaoyu becomes confused, thinking they're just talking about works of fiction. In a meeting, Tsubaki tells the police about Polka, saying he is with the girl who left footprints in the human knots case. Kozaburo mentions his connections to Clarissa and Kuruya, and Tsubaki tells everyone about Polka's fortune-telling business. Later, as Polka prepares for his fortune-telling session, the detectives suddenly arrive, and Tsubaki asks him to read his fortune. Tsubaki claims he will use the fortune to prevent future murders, but Polka says he can't see the future, and that he only traces paths. As Polka begins the reading, Polka tells Tsubaki about his background, and Tsubaki suspects that somebody is feeding him the information, thinking he has an earpiece under his hood. But we learn that his magical eye is just looking at Kuruya's monitor as he searches for information. He mentions the wound from Tsubaki's past, which is weighing him down, and Tsubaki asks how he can heal it. He becomes surprised as the spirit in the pen starts moving, and it writes something on the paper. Tsubaki is triggered seeing it, and he grabs onto Polka, asking him what he knows. In a flashback, we see Tsubaki talking to a mysterious person who asks him to memorize a symbol on a piece of paper. He tells Tsubaki not to forget it as he burns it away, telling him not to show the symbol to anyone else because it's the signpost they must follow and a one-way ticket to death. Back in the present, he asks Polka why he drew the symbol, but Polka tells him he is just showing him the path. He lets Polka go, and he pays him more than what is expected, bidding Polka farewell as he starts walking away. Xiaoyu wonders what was written on the piece of paper, so he thinks about looking into the fake Polka's secrets. He asks for permission to leave, saying he will buy dinner, and Seo lets him leave. Meanwhile, Tsubaki is eating with Kozaburo, and Kozaburo asks him why he got worked up during the reading, wanting to know what was written on the piece of paper, but Tsubaki says that he will tell him in the future. Xiaoyu sees them as they leave the restaurant, and he thinks about following them a bit longer. We see a burning building as a man opens up a safe, taking a scroll out of it, but as he turns around, he sees the fire-breathing bug walking towards him singing a lullaby. The man is taken out, and the fire-breathing bug leaves as everything burns, and his signature appears on the wall. But Tenya suddenly appears, taking the scroll from the man's body. It's the same symbol from the reading, and Tenya gets an idea for the theme of his comeback performance. Back in their building, Kuruya wonders why Tsubaki became upset, and Polka reveals that it was because of the spirit in the pen, saying he has no idea what was written on the paper. Tsubaki goes to Clarissa, asking her about their mutual friend, but she has no idea what he's talking about. Tsubaki says he was an inspector named Hozaragi, which is revealed to be the spirit in the pen. Clarissa remembers him, and Tsubaki suggests that Hozaragi may have recruited Polka, thinking she may have been involved somehow. But Clarissa says she knows nothing about it, and that she's just letting Polka stay in her building to build connections with his family. Tsubaki thinks Hozaragi is still alive, so he wants to clean up the police force so that Hozaragi will return. Xiaoyu overhears the conversation, and he thinks about investigating the bar's staff. Kuruya is surprised to learn that Hozaragi was an inspector who investigated police corruption, and Polka asks him what he wrote on the paper, but Hozaragi demands a payment of 1 million yen, which they don't have. Hozaragi reveals that the case involves one of his regrets, so Polka has no choice but to help him, because it's a part of their pact. At the detention facility, Tanya goes to the grocer, wanting to buy information about the symbol. We learn that the grocer comes from a family of merchants with a century of history, and he is the 5th generation owner of the family business. He has a weird prison cell because he has gained power by dealing with the state, and everything is on the table when it comes to making deals with him. The grocer gives him a free sample, saying the symbols have meanings. He reveals that one diagonal line is a sword, and the old Knight Order in Europe used a similar insignia, but he refuses to go on, saying Tanya must pay to learn more. The day of Tanya's performance arrives, and everyone notices blimps outside. They all display the symbol, which surprises Polka, because it represents the emblem of the fallen empire from his world. Tsubaki tells Kozaburo that it's the same symbol Polka showed him, so Kozaburo thinks the Phantom Solitaire is connected to Hozaragi's case, and Tsubaki considers the possibility that he is being targeted by Tenya. At that moment, an officer informs Tsubaki that the police HQ is asking for him. Tenya listens to the news while on top of a blimp, but the reporter states that the blimps must have been the work of foreign artists, so he becomes disappointed. While he was in the detention facility, we learn that the grocer charged him 3 billion yen for the information, explaining that Tenya could earn 6 billion yen over his lifetime if he really wanted to earn money, and the information will shape his destiny, but it could end up destroying him if mishandled, so he thinks 3 billion is a reasonable price. However, Tenya decides to find the answer himself, paying the grocer for his help to fly several blimps. He reads a manga on top of a blimp, but he suddenly gets shot by a sniper, who is surprised that she actually hit him. However, her spotter says she missed, as it's revealed that the body was just a dummy. Tenya goes on air, reporting the incident to everyone, and he accuses the police of making an attempt on his life. He tells everyone that someone wanted to kill him because of the symbol, so he thinks there is a conspiracy or secret society involved. Tenya offers to give a 300 million yen reward to any person who will tell him about the symbol, saying he will give his contact details soon, as he ends the broadcast. Polka notes that the situation is now a mess, as they wonder what they should do next, but Sayo asks them what is happening, because she heard something about empires and reincarnation. So Polka explains his story to her, saying he will return the body to the original Polka soon. Kuruya thinks Sayo wouldn't believe that story, but she says she believes him, because she noticed he is nothing like the Polka she knows. She goes to the bathroom with the real Polka, and they talk about whether they could trust her with the information. Polka reveals he can alter someone's memories, by making a spirit remove a part of their soul, but this could affect the target's brain. He says it wasn't hard to do in his old world, but he doesn't know if the humans in this world are different, so he is afraid he could end up destroying Sayo's mind. As they talk, they suddenly notice that Misaki is no longer with them. Misaki joins Sayo as she takes a shower, telling her she killed the real Polka, but Sayo knows Polka has already forgiven her, since she knows he has a gentle nature. And they end up becoming friends, as Misaki tells them that Sayo can't be the one who ordered the hit on Polka. Kuruya realizes that Sayo took the real Polka with her to the bathroom, and he tells her the truth about the shark toy, making her upset. Kuruya thinks it's because she showered in front of him, but Sayo says it's because he got to become a shark, wanting to exchange bodies with him. They discuss their next move, as Polka thinks about meeting with the Phantom Solitaire, because Polka sees the symbol as a precious memory, so he doesn't want anyone to defile it. They wonder if the Phantom Solitaire is from Polka's world, but Polka doubts it, saying he spent years creating the reincarnation magic he used, so he doesn't think anyone from his world could do the same. Kuruya does his research about the symbol, while Hozaragi tells Polka about his suspicions, thinking the police are involved. At the police HQ, Tsubaki makes his way to the office of the Superintendent General named Jiro. Tsubaki enters his office, and Jiro asks him if he can function as a cog in their machine. Tsubaki says he's good at fitting in, but he mentions a pebble in the works. Jiro thinks he is talking about Hozaragi, asking him if Hozaragi was just a pebble to him, but Tsubaki reveals he was talking about the rat who drove Hozaragi away. Jiro informs him the Phantom Solitaire investigation has been reorganized, but he asks Tsubaki to play a key role. Meanwhile, Tenya receives information that someone from Shinjuku hacked the police, and he learns that it was done from a certain office of a fortune teller, so he thinks about paying the fortune teller a visit. Kuruya informs Polka that he can't find information about the symbol, but he knows it was part of a serious case that involved Hozaragi. Hozaragi confirms this, stating how he was killed by assassins in the building, and Kuruya speculates the culprit must have been a cop. Polka is worried about the Shino-yamas, thinking their involvement in the case could put the family in danger. Meanwhile, Tsubaki discusses the Phantom Solitaire case with the Metropolitan Police, telling them about his tendency to move closer if anything catches his eye, so he suggests following the symbol to cross paths with him. As he continues to discuss the case, Kozaburo overhears some of the officers making comments, questioning Tsubaki's eligibility to lecture them. Polka begins a fortune-telling session, telling his customer how he is about to get into trouble, suggesting he should change his ways. We learn that the customer is actually Tenya, noting how Polka's readings were accurate for the person he is disguised as, so he thinks he is just being fed information. He concludes that Polka is nothing special, letting out a sigh, so Polka asks if he has any questions. Tenya asks him about the symbol, and Polka tells him that there's something wrong with it, as the pen starts writing on a piece of paper, drawing the correct symbol. Tenya falls silent, and we learn Polka knew his true identity, but he couldn't tolerate the incorrect symbol, so he felt compelled to correct him. Tenya is about to leave, but Polka asks him about a pigtailed girl using a wheelchair, which shocks Tenya. The girl is revealed to be the spirit behind him, and although Polka can't understand what she's saying, he knows that the girl is distressed by the path he's walking. Polka is about to help her pass on, but Tenya says she must be his guardian spirit as he leaves the room, and he realizes there's something special about Polka. As he is about to leave the building, Tenya is surprised to see a girl wearing the fire-breathing bug's raincoat, and we learn that the girl also asked Polka about the symbol. At the police HQ, Tsubaki tells Kozaburo about the error in the symbol, but he doesn't want to share it with the others, thinking the enemy could be anywhere. Two officers approach them, mocking Tsubaki's career, but Tsubaki reminds them he now has the authority to order them around. One of the officers grabs onto him, revealing how the officers still hate him because of his time with Hozuragi, but Tsubaki states that only crooked cops are mad at him. The officer pushes him back, telling him to know his place, but Tsubaki mocks their behavior. At that moment, two officers from Tsubaki's division, Yatsu and Tozawa, arrive, and they casually break the officer's arm. But Tozawa claims the officer broke his own arm, pulling it back as he calls it a problem solved. The senior commissioner Habaki asks them what's going on, and Tozawa explains they just performed first aid on an injured colleague. Tsubaki explains the situation to him in private, but he asks Tsubaki not to make waves since he can't always cover him. That evening, Tenya is about to enter the torture building through the rooftop when he suddenly gets attacked. He blocks it using his cards, and he calls out to Polka, thinking he was behind the attack, but Xiaoyu appears, which confuses Tenya. We see Polka sleeping in his room, when the real Polka notices writing on the wall, which appears to be from the fire-breathing bug. In a flashback, we see the Empire in danger, so the corpse god thinks about helping them out. His master tells him to get ready for life without the Empire, saying they have unlimited time, but she tells him to treasure the time of mortals, as she opens the door. However, the corpse god failed to follow her advice, since he wasn't able to save the people who were dear to him, and he even ended up as the enemy of the world. Back in the present, the real Polka wakes him up, allowing him to see the writing on the wall, which states that the world is a buggy program, and it asks him if he is a termite or a bird eating the bug. Polka receives a call from an unknown number, which seems to be from the fire-breathing bug. The man asks him if he is the bastard child of Sabramond, and Polka wonders how he even knows that name. Meanwhile, Xiaoyu attacks Tenya with his knives, forcing Tenya to jump away. Xiaoyu transforms his fingers into long knives, and Tenya panics as he dodges. We see a man observing the fight, and he informs Takaru about the situation, so he decides to make a move, saying they can benefit from the conflict. Polka tries to find out more about what he knows about Sabramond, wondering if he is also from the other world, but we see the girl in the fire-breathing bug's raincoat, who seems to be talking to the man, and Polka finds them hard to understand. He thinks the caller could be nearby, so he uses his eyes to look around for them, and he notices Tenya and Xiaoyu fighting on the roof. We see Tenya is panicking on the inside, and he has no idea what's going on, but he tries to play it cool. Xiaoyu wonders about his relationship with Polka, and decides to test him, mentioning Hozuragi. Tenya pretends like he knows Hozuragi, and Xiaoyu wonders if he is involved with Hozuragi's death. Tenya tries to explain himself, but Xiaoyu sees him as an enemy, so he charges at him. However, Lemmings suddenly lands between them, and they both know he is dangerous. We see Takaru as his associates wonder if Lemmings will attack Xiaoyu, but Takaru assures them he has ordered him not to harm Xiaoyu, and he is confident Lemmings will follow his orders. Lemmings turns to Tenya, and Xiaoyu sees it as an opening, attacking with his knives, but Lemmings is unfazed, continuing toward Tenya. Xiaoyu thinks he is being ignored, so he attacks again using his fingers. He is not able to cut through Lemmings, so he shocks him with electricity instead. But Lemmings gets free, and he continues toward Tenya, who starts to panic and asks to resolve things peacefully. Meanwhile, we see the girl as she gets approached by Yatsu and Tozawa. They find her suspicious being out on the streets in the middle of the night. She quickly ends her call, and Polka wonders what's going on. Thinking about how he doesn't want his memory to be defiled, he prepares to take action. He can sense someone flustered below him, and since the call ended at the same time, he deduces the caller is nearby. Not wanting to give up this clue, he activates his power. Everyone gets a strange feeling as he covers the building and creates a field known as his temple. We see the girl explaining to the two officers that she was just out looking for her dog that ran away, and she is soon joined by her father. Polka watches them with his eyes, and he knows they are lying, because he can't sense any dogs in the area, and he recognizes the souls of Tenya and the girl as the two people who asked him about the symbol. So he decides to expand his field to keep track of them. Everyone around feels a sudden unsettling feeling, but they can't tell what's going on. Polka heads to the roof to help Xiaoyu, but the real Polka worries he will be seen, so he prepares to use his invisible hands. Lemmings is attacked by the invisible hands, but he shrugs it off and continues toward Tenya. Tenya is also affected, and he wonders what is going on. Polka notes that his control has improved within his field, so he decides to take things to the next level. Tenya decides to retreat, throwing a smoke bomb and using a balloon to escape, but he suddenly becomes shocked, and Takaru also receives a shocking report. By sympathizing with the spirits, Polka is able to share senses with their hands, and he is able to give them a tangible form. We see a swarm of hands as they try to capture Lemmings, but Polka realizes he still doesn't have the power to restrain him, so he decides to go after Tenya instead. Tenya is overjoyed seeing them, wondering about the secret behind them, but he manages to get away with another balloon. Polka is disappointed he got away, but he reveals he managed to catch the girl. We see footage of Polka's hands being spread across the internet, and it's connected to the skeleton event. There are people that recognize his power, looking to control it for themselves, and we learn the ones behind Hosuragi's death have started to make a move. And it seems like this is only the start of something much bigger. But that's where this series ends for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. When the gods found humans to be increasingly arrogant, they decided to wipe out all of humanity, but the Valkyrie Hilda stood up against them, suggesting Ragnarok, where humanity is given a chance, and their greatest heroes are summoned to fight for mankind's survival. With the help of her Valkyrie sisters, who transform into weapons known as the Valander, the heroes are given the power to oppose the gods. Despite this, humanity's heroes still lost the first 2 rounds against the gods, as Thor and Zeus proved to be too powerful. However, Kojiro Sasaki, the strongest swordsman, was able to take out Poseidon in the 3rd round. As Hilda and her sister Gaul consider the next match, they find out that the gods will be sending out Hercules. Although they are on different sides, they see him like a brother, and Hilda wishes him luck. Hercules gets approached by Loki, who wonders if he can really destroy humanity, since he is half human himself. But Hercules tells him he will fight with everything he has for the gods, although he plans to petition against the destruction of humanity after he wins. The next round begins, and Hilda has chosen Jack the Ripper to fight for humanity. Hercules gets angry that he has to fight against a mass murderer, and even the crowd is conflicted about cheering for a serial killer. The arena is transformed into a section of London, and Jack shows off his divine weapon, a gigantic pair of scissors that can cut through anything. As Hercules prepares to fight, Jack runs away from him. He chases after him, and finds Jack having some tea. He tells Jack to pick up his weapon and fight, but as Jack ignores him, Hercules approaches, but runs into some tripwires. A trap is activated, and blades fall down on him, but he shrugs it off, saying human weapons aren't able to even scratch a god. Jack fires a grappling hook to get away, but Hercules jumps after him, swinging his club at Jack, who uses his scissors to block, but the scissors get shattered. Jack backs away from him, reaching for some more knives, but Hercules reminds him they are pointless against him. However, the knives end up stabbing into him. Hercules wonders how it's possible, and Jack reveals that he lied about his scissors, saying his divine weapon is actually his satchel, which he can use to create other divine weapons, as long as they can fit in the bag. Jack continues to throw knives, and Hercules bats them away, but there are some knives that land. Despite this, Hercules continues to push forward. As he swings his club, Jack assembles an umbrella, which he spins and diverts the attack. Jack taunts him, and Hercules activates one of his 12 labors as his tattoo grows and his club transforms, creating a lion-like shockwave that hits Jack and blows him into a building. Jack gets back up, snapping his dislocated shoulder back into place. The tattoos on Hercules spread all over his body, and Loki asks Ares, the god of war, about them. Ares explains that when Hercules completed the 12 labors and mastered the 12 divine arts, those powers came with a price, and each time he uses them, his tattoos spread, and every time they do, he feels unbearable pain that would be enough to knock out a normal god. And if the tattoos cover his whole body, then he will die. But Ares has faith in him, saying his will is so strong that even the gods couldn't break it. We see that thousands of years ago, there's a young boy Castor that's getting bullied. His friend Alcides tries to stand up for him, but also gets beaten up. Castor wonders why he tried to fight when he is so weak, but Alcides states that it was the right thing to do. Despite being a scrawny kid, he had the biggest heart and sense of justice. He trains as hard as he can, but the bullies mock him, saying that he should try drinking the blood of Zeus from the temple, because the legends say that if a true hero drinks it, they will become immortal. However, if they are not a true hero, they will instantly perish. Castor tells Alcides to not believe them as it's just a legend. Alcides says he is aware. Although he wants to get strong, there is no point if he dies trying. He keeps on training, and over time, there came a point where there was no longer anyone who would make fun of him. During a council of the gods, they find that humans have become too wicked, so Ares is sent to wipe them all out. The humans are scared, but Alcides stands up to him. Ares easily kicks him away, but he stands up and faces him again. He decides to risk it all, drinking the blood of Zeus. He has a violent reaction to the blood and falls to the ground. As Ares continues forward, Alcides gets back up, having obtained a stronger body. The soldiers all charge at him, but Alcides defeats them all and goes toe-to-toe fighting with Ares. Neither of them back down, but Zeus appears and stops the fight. He tells Alcides that he will become a god, since he will just cause trouble if he is left on Earth. Alcides agrees on the condition that they swear they will never again cause harm to mankind, and for the next 4,000 years, the gods didn't interfere with Earth's affairs. Alcides took his place among the gods as a child of Zeus, and was named after his wife, Hera, and became known as Hercules. Jack and Hercules continue their fight as Jack throws his blades and knives. He jumps around all over the place, but as Hercules approaches, Jack starts hopping in the air, and it turns out he set up wires while he was jumping around. Hercules wonders how many more tricks he has, and Jack throws knives in the air, and using the wires, he flings them with increased speed. The knives bounce all around, and Hercules struggles to defend himself. Hercules uses the sixth labor, transforming his club into a bird, creating a powerful wind that blows the knives back at Jack. Jack gets hit, and his monocle is destroyed, but this reveals Jack's special eye. He marvels at Hercules' unwavering will, seeing him with a brilliant light, and he wonders how his color will change when he meets his death. We see Jack as a boy, getting caught stealing food from the trash. He gets beaten by the owner, and Jack sees the man's aura as red, indicating malice and rage. But as he begs for food, the man's aura turns blue, which Jack recognizes as a color of superiority. Jack gets to leave with some food, and he heads home thinking his mother will be happy. He gets to the brothel where they live, and his mother sees that he's injured and quickly treats him. Jack sees her as the most beautiful person, seeing a brilliant golden aura. One day as Jack reads, one of the women at the brothel wonders why his mother decided to keep him since she aborted her previous 5 pregnancies. She pities him for having to grow up in such a situation, but Jack says he is happy, taking comfort in his mother's love. One day, as he is returning home with some food, he returns to find his mother crying over a newspaper article. She learned the man she was in love with had gotten married. He had promised to come back for her 13 years ago, and she is devastated. When Jack tries to comfort his mother, saying she still has him, she yells at him, saying he is worthless now, and wishing she had aborted him. He realizes he was just a tool to connect her to the one she loved. Jack sees his mother's color turning red. He starts choking her, finding the color to be disgusting, and she turns purple. Realizing it's the color of fear, he finds it to be quite beautiful. His mother gets free, but Jack stabs her in the neck, saying she is the most beautiful she has ever been. Jack tells Hercules that when people die, it's a beautiful sight when they all turn to fear. But Hercules says that when he dies, there won't be a hint of fear in him, because the only thing he fears is the lack of justice. The two continue their fight, and Jack eventually gets cornered, with his back against Big Ben. Jack uses his grappling gun to get away, but Hercules knocks down the tower. Jack manages to hold on the clock arms, and Hercules prepares to use his 7th labor. The clock face detaches, and Jack throws it at Hercules. Hercules reminds him that he can't be hurt by mortal weapons, but as he tries to block it, his arm is sliced off. Jack says that he lied about his satchel being his divine weapon, revealing it was just a bluff to get Hercules to lower his guard, and that his real divine weapon are his gloves. Using a pebble, he shows how anything he touches becomes a divine weapon. Ares is shocked, realizing that he has been touching everything, so the whole city has become a weapon. Ares starts freaking out, but he gets punched by Zeus, who reminds him of the kind of man that Hercules is. Ares pulls himself together, and agrees that his best friend Hercules would never lose. Despite being cornered, Hercules shows no sign of fear. Hercules says that as both a human and a god, he can see the flaws of humanity, yet he still loves them. Jack sees the color of love from him, a color he never thought he would see again, and Hercules declares that he will save him as well. Hercules throws his club into the sky, and activates his 12th labor, Cerberus. The hounds descend onto him, and he is transformed with a demonic visage. Zeus states it's now a race against time. The labor is devastatingly powerful, but it comes at a high price. The labor will only end when it either devours his opponent or completely consumes him. The fight between the two becomes more intense and Hercules easily destroys anything that Jack throws at him. Despite being able to dodge a lot of the attacks, Jack shields himself with a manhole, but Hercules punches right through it and lands a hit. Jack tries to escape with his grappling hook, but Hercules jumps after him, punching him down, and Jack gets impaled on a metal fence. Jack cuts the metal piece and barely stands. Hercules tells him there is nowhere left to run, but Jack reminds him that all of London is his weapon. He cuts the building behind him, and as it falls, he bounces off of Hercules to get away, and Hercules is crushed by the building. The fight appears to be over, but Ares yells for Hercules to stand, and in that moment, Hercules emerges from the rubble, getting up once again. He tells Jack that no matter what he tries, his righteous heart won't be shaken. Jack thanks him, realizing that his mother's color was fake. He never knew that true love was so beautiful, but he still wants to turn him to fear. Jack takes a piece of wood and part of a door, turning them into divine weapons, and engages Hercules in close combat for the first time. Hercules smashes through his shield, and Jack is blown away. Jack goes back to avoiding the attacks, and Ares worries he is just buying time while Hercules' tattoos cover him. But Loki doesn't agree, pointing out all the blood Jack is losing, saying he also doesn't have much time. Jack continues dodging Hercules' attacks, waiting for a perfect timing. He pulls out the iron rod from the fence, but only manages to scratch him, and Hercules knocks him down. The gods start celebrating, but Jack starts singing London Bridge is falling down, and he slowly gets back up. He stumbles over to Hercules, trying to stab him once again, but Hercules punches him, and as he prepares for a finishing blow, Jack stabs him with his hands. Hercules realizes that he soaked his gloves with his blood, and turned his blood into a divine weapon. Realizing that he lost, he asks Jack about his color, and Jack tells him that his color is unchanged. Hercules is glad, hugging Jack, and reminding him that he will always love mankind. His soul proceeds to shatter, and the gods are left speechless. As he fades, he hopes Hilda is watching, saying that he leaves the rest to her to save the humans. Gaul cries for Hercules, and asks Hilda if she is happy that Jack killed him, but Hilda says she is doing what she must, in order to save humanity. Hilda goes into a room where she pays respect to the fallen heroes, and she adds another cup for Hercules. She starts crying, saying that she will join him when this is all over. As Ares mourns Hercules' death, Zeus is angered that they are now tied with humanity, 2-2. He lets out his frustration, destroying their viewing area, and refuses to let humanity take the lead. We meet the god Buddha, as he sees Loki waiting for him. Buddha wonders if he is trying to pick a fight, but Loki just asks him about the Volundr. He thinks it's strange that the Valkyrie has such a powerful technique. He accuses Buddha of using his powers to aid the humans, asking him if he's a traitor. Things are looking tense, and at that moment, the 7 gods of fortune arrive, and they also want to deliver judgment on Buddha. One of them, named Ebisu, tries to intimidate him, but Buddha isn't bothered. Ebisu tries to hit him, but he launches his lollipop to stop Ebisu's attack. The gods of fortune prepare for battle, with Loki joining their side. Buddha tells them to bring it on, unleashing his power. At that moment, Kojiro arrives, along with 2 other heroes of humanity. They take Buddha's side, preparing to fight the gods, but Zeus suddenly smashes the ground, breaking things up. Ebisu still wants to fight, but Odin unleashes a menacing aura, intimidating everyone, and they all decide to walk away. Zeus warns Buddha not to cause trouble, but Buddha laughs, saying he doesn't take orders from anyone. Meanwhile, Gaul apologizes to Hilda for her outburst, but Hilda tells her there's no need, saying they should work together for mankind. They visit the quarters of their next hero, where they see a massive man sleeping. Hilda wakes him up, telling him it's his turn to fight. The man gets up, and we meet Raiden Tamimin, mankind's greatest sumo wrestler. Raiden wonders if he'll be merging with Hilda, but she says there is someone more suitable for him. A giant woman named Thrud enters the room, introducing herself as his partner. Raiden is shocked seeing her, and Thrud wonders if he's disappointed seeing her appearance, but Raiden is actually pleased, saying she is perfect, and this makes her heart melt, as she turns into his divine weapon. We see the next fight is set in a sumo-themed arena, and Raiden is introduced as an undefeated sumo champion. His opponent arrives on an elephant, and we meet Shiva, the god of destruction. The fight begins, with Raiden instantly charging at Shiva, and drop-kicking him in his face. Shiva gets pushed back, but he quickly recovers. Raiden continues to attack, landing a punch, and he knocks Shiva to his knees. He wants to end things quickly, attacking with a knee strike, but Shiva blocks it, glad they are having a real fight. Raiden is pushed away, and Shiva grabs onto him, smashing his chest and launching him into the air. Raiden lands on his feet, and Shiva is happy to see he is a worthy opponent. In a flashback, we see a 3-year-old Raiden as his parents wonder what's wrong with him because he can't even stand. One day, while his parents are preparing supper, they are surprised to see him standing, but his legs are shaking. His parents are overjoyed to see this, but as he takes a step, Raiden suddenly feels pain, and his parents watch in horror as his body falls apart. All the bones in his body are broken, but we learn it's because his muscles were just too powerful for his bones. Despite this, Raiden tried his best to walk, and he eventually managed to do it, as his body produced even more muscles to restrain his power, creating a shell, which was known as the 100 Seals. Back in the present, Raiden slaps himself, and unlocks his 100 Seals. His muscles start to go berserk, and Shiva wonders if he's going to destroy himself. But he calls on Thrud to help him out, and he is able to put his muscles under control. We learn that the lines on his body are actually his Volender, and it gives him total control over his muscles. Gaul becomes shocked realizing Raiden became the strongest while his power was restricted by his 100 Seals. Raiden's body stabilizes, and he charges at Shiva, punching with all of his might. Shiva is blown away, and he feels the difference in Raiden's power. Everyone cheers for Raiden, and Shiva seems to be barely standing. Raiden tries to finish him off with a headbutt, but Raiden is the one who ends up taking damage. Shiva counterattacks, punching him away, as he reveals his head is as hard as stone. Shiva starts attacking him with a flurry of attacks, and all Raiden can do is block. Raiden takes some damage, but he grabs onto Shiva's arm, and he uses his brute strength to crush it instantly. Shiva kicks him away, and everyone sees his broken arm. The gods tremble, but the Indian gods know Shiva better, and they cheer him on. Shiva hears them cheering for him, and we learn he has never let his friends down. Shiva realizes he is fighting for their sake as well, so he gets fired up, charging at Raiden, and his punch seems to have gotten stronger. We learn that his fists have the power of over 1,000 Indian gods behind them, and Raiden tries to fight back, but Shiva hits him with a devastating blow, making him cough blood, as Shiva attacks with his head. Raiden doesn't back down, countering with his own headbutt, and the two keep smashing their heads together. In a flashback, we learn that the Indian gods were fighting each other to determine who would rule over them. During that time, Shiva and his friend Rudra were just unknown gods, living carefree lives. But their territory is attacked by another group of gods. They go out to confront them, but they get laughed at as the gods think they are nobodies. However, they end up beating those gods, and after the fight, Rudra tells Shiva about his dream to stand at the pinnacle of India, wanting to see things no one else has ever seen. He tells Shiva to join him, saying they can go anywhere if they work together, and Shiva decides to go with him, thinking it will be fun. Together, they beat the other gods, and with every god they defeated, they would gain their strength, but it would also increase their responsibility. They eventually go up against the god named Indra, who is said to be 10 times stronger than the other gods. Rudra fights him alone, and he eventually comes out on top. They dance together to celebrate their victory, and they later reach the top, having defeated all of the other gods. However, at the pinnacle, Rudra tells him they need to fight, because only one god can stand at the top. Shiva doesn't want to do it, but Rudra insists, so they end up fighting. They trade blows, in what is now known as the most ferocious fight in the history of India, and Shiva eventually gains the advantage. Rudra refuses to give up, reminding Shiva about his dream, so Shiva decides to throw the fight, but just as he is about to admit defeat, Rudra beats him to it, knowing he lost to Shiva. Rudra tells Shiva not to go easy on an opponent who's going all out, and Shiva gains the name of Rudra, making him the chief of all the Indian gods. Back in the present, Shiva starts dancing to the rhythm of the cosmos, and the other gods recognize it as the war dance which he used to unite the Indian gods. Shiva moves erratically, dodging Raiden's punch. Raiden strengthens his legs, trying to attack again, but Shiva easily dodges and kicks him away. Shiva proceeds to give him a beating, and Raiden appears to be helpless against the assault. But he pumps up his forearms, creating a massive meat shield to block all of Shiva's attacks. Shiva's dance sets his body on fire, and he continues to pound Raiden with his burning fists. Shiva manages to break through his shield, as he strikes with his leg, burning Raiden's body. Everyone thinks mankind is about to lose, but Raiden suddenly smiles, as he realizes he can fight his opponent with all his might. In a flashback, we see a 5-year-old Raiden as he has a sumo match with his senior. He easily defeats his senior, and Raiden celebrates his victory, but his senior is injured, and everyone starts seeing him as a monster. He asks his mother why he isn't like the other kids, but his mother tells him his strength is a gift from the gods, so he must use it to help the weak. After that, Raiden grew up as a good man, and he is supposed to stay in his village, but one day, a volcano erupted, destroying all of the crops and causing a famine. Raiden knows the people are suffering, so at the age of 17, he leaves the village and goes to Edo, planning to become a sumo wrestler to earn money for his village. He enters a dojo, where the trainer tells him to have a match, but he refuses, not wanting to hurt the other wrestlers. But a wrestler named Ozaki challenges him, telling him to go home if he loses, so he accepts the fight. Raiden immediately charges at his opponent, but Ozaki is able to stop him, and he gets thrown to the side. Raiden is shocked by this, but he keeps charging at Ozaki, who keeps beating him up. As Raiden lies on the ground, Ozaki asks him what he thinks about sumo, and Raiden discovers his love for sumo. After that, Raiden devotes himself to learning sumo, and one day, he has his first match, where he easily throws his opponent out of the ring. He goes on to overpower other wrestlers with a single move, turning him into a living legend. He feeds the people in his hometown, and everyone starts looking up to him, but during one of his matches, he realizes that his opponent is afraid of him. This makes him remember the time he hurt his senior, so he ends up throwing the match. Ozaki asks him why he did this, but he sees Raiden crying, as he realizes he is using his powers to bully the weak. To prevent himself from injuring his opponents, he stops using his 4 strongest sumo moves, but despite this, he goes on to win more than 95% of his matches, and he only lost fights when he threw against much weaker opponents. Back in the present, Raiden assumes an unusual stance, stomping his foot, as he prepares to use his palm thrust. He flexes his leg muscles, as he jumps toward Shiva, transferring all of his strength to his hand, as he unleashes his technique. Shiva tries to block it, but he gets blown away, and even loses 2 of his arms. Everyone thinks humanity has won, but Shiva gets back up. Raiden suddenly takes damage, and Gaul wonders what's going on. Hilda explains that Raiden's technique puts strain on his body, and his body is being ripped apart, but his Volundr is holding him together. Thrud is worried about him, but Raiden tells her to move his muscles even faster. He knows it won't be good for his body, but he wants to put his full might into sumo, so Thrud lends him her powers, as she decides to support him. Shiva feels a gust of wind, as he sees Rudra watching his fight. He is happy to see him in the arena, along with the other Indian gods who believe in him, so he becomes determined not to lose. Shiva stabs himself in the chest, grabbing his heart and forcing it to beat faster, causing fire to surround his body as he transforms into his ultimate form. The two charge at each other, exchanging blows, as Shiva uses his burning legs to attack Raiden, burning his muscles. Hilda knows Raiden is at a disadvantage, because he will lose muscle as the fight drags on, but Hermes notes that Shiva's technique is just as dangerous, and it could end up burning his body away. Shiva attacks Raiden from behind, and Raiden tries to grab onto him, enduring the flames, but Shiva counters, kicking him in the head. The other sumo wrestlers start to lose hope, but Ozaki points out Raiden is still on his feet, fighting for all of sumo, so they cheer him on. This gives Raiden more power, as he charges at Shiva with his head, knocking him down. Shiva gets back up, but his body starts falling to pieces, so the Indian gods realize he's close to his limit. However, they know that Raiden is in a similar situation, so the fight has become an endurance contest. The two clash, and the crowd goes wild as they exchange blows. With both fighters fighting for something bigger than themselves, they are putting everything on the line for this fight, but they both approach their limit. Raiden prepares to use his palm thrust again, and Shiva tells him to bring it on. They charge at each other with their ultimate skills, but Shiva's attack overpowers Raiden, ripping his arm apart. He thanks Shiva for allowing him to use all of his might, as he tells Thrud to release his Volundr, but she chooses to stay with him, saying she has fallen for him. Raiden admits he had a great time, and Shiva finishes him off. He thanks Raiden for giving him the greatest fight ever, and as he walks away, Raiden's soul proceeds to shatter. As Shiva leaves the arena, he encounters Rudra, who catches him as he falls. Zeus approaches him, saying he's in bad shape, as Shiva admits he almost lost, saying humans are awesome, and Zeus laughs as he agrees with him. Meanwhile, Gaul mourns the death of Thrud, asking Hilda why they are going so far to save mankind. Hilda adds Raiden's cup to the altar of fallen heroes, saying they are now 2 to 3 against the gods. She gets emotional, but she is determined to save mankind. We see Zeus approaching a tree, where he finds Buddha eating some chocolates. He wants to have one, but Buddha won't let him have any, and he eats all of the chocolates at once. Zeus asks him to fight in the next match, saying he doesn't like losing. He threatens Buddha with his aura, but Buddha quickly calls him the boss, and he tells him to enjoy the show. We see Buddha as he enters the arena. He grabs onto the announcer's horn, and he declares he will be fighting on the side of mankind. The gods think he has gone mad, but Buddha claims that if the gods aren't willing to save mankind, then it's up to him to do it. Gaul is confused, asking Hilda why Buddha is fighting on their side, wondering if this is part of her plan, but Hilda claims Buddha doesn't take orders from anyone. We see that just before the round, Buddha approached her, after she just mourned for Raiden. Buddha tells her that he wants to fight for humanity, but she isn't surprised. He asks her if things are going according to her plan, because she asked him about his powers before Ragnarok began, so he thinks she's been scheming to get him to fight the gods. Hilda denies this, as she points out that everyone knows he hates the gods. This makes him laugh, but he warns her that he doesn't take kindly to being manipulated, before walking away. We return to the arena, where the announcer tells Buddha that he can't switch sides, but Zeus says he doesn't mind, revealing that Buddha isn't breaking any of the rules. Odin asks Buddha if he is prepared to be the enemy of all gods, but he doesn't care, saying he's the only thing that matters, making all the other gods mad. Buddha asks Zeus who he's going to fight, and light comes out of the sky, as a ship descends on the arena. The 7 gods of fortune make their entrance. The announcer says that only one of them can fight. Their leader reveals that they are actually one being, as he removes his armor. His companions enter his body, and a bright light surrounds him, creating a sphere, which shatters as a god named Zero appears. Zero wants to slaughter Buddha, as he warms up his body, but Buddha doesn't seem to care. His back bulges, and he pulls out his weapon, as he prepares to fight. Gaul thinks it's not fair for 7 gods to combine into one, but Hilda calls it his true form, revealing that he used to be a good god that wanted to spread fortune, but he ended up being changed by sorrow. In a flashback, we see Zero going to the city, where he sees the people suffering. It makes him cry, and he wonders what he can do to make them happy. He thinks about removing the source of their misfortune to make them happy, so he goes to a boy, touching him with his hand, and absorbing his misfortune. The boy instantly feels better, and the people start worshipping Zero. He continues to absorb the misfortune of other people, but after several years, he has absorbed too much, and it takes a toll on his body. He returns to the city, wanting to see how the people are doing, but he discovers the true nature of humanity, as the people fall into depravity without misfortune. A man bumps into him, causing him to fall to the ground, and Zero recognizes the man as the boy he helped years ago. He asks the man how he's doing, but the man doesn't even remember him, telling him to get lost. Zero can't believe that any of this is real, thinking about everything he's done for them, and wondering why the people are still unhappy. At that moment, Buddha arrives with his disciples. Zero notes that Buddha's disciples look shabby and poor, but he wonders why they looked so happy, unlike the people in the city. Zero calls out to Buddha, asking him why his followers look so fortunate, because he absorbed the misfortune of humans, but he only made them worse. Buddha tells him that fortune can't be given, and that it must be obtained, saying there is shadow where there is light, and tells Zero to join him to achieve enlightenment. Zero cries as he runs away, feeling jealous, because despite being a human, Buddha was able to make people more fortunate, knowing that it's supposed to be his job. As he mourns by a river, a dark energy suddenly surrounds him, and his love transforms into hate, turning him into the Zero that he is now. 3 people see him in the woods, and they immediately run away, as he chases after them. He is about to kill a woman, but she stops, shielding her baby. This causes Zero to hesitate, and he resists the urge to kill, dividing himself into the 7 gods of fortune. Back in the present, Zero thinks it's his time to punish Buddha, but Buddha suddenly kicks him, knocking him to his knees, as Buddha reminds him that the fight has already begun. Zero gets back up, attacking with his axe, but Buddha easily evades thanks to his special eyes. Zero becomes angry, swinging his axe wildly, but Buddha dodges every attack. Zero becomes frustrated, and his axe seems to grow in size. Zeus reveals that Zero's axe absorbs misfortune, and it gets stronger the more it absorbs. Hilda adds that Zero's inability to hit Buddha counts as misfortune to him, so he will get stronger as the fight drags on. Gaul is impressed by Buddha's ability to dodge, moving before Zero even attacks, and we learn that his eyes give him the power of precognition. Zero continues to miss, asking Buddha if he's mocking him, and Buddha suddenly counterattacks. Buddha taunts him, making him even angrier, and Buddha proceeds to give him a beating. The battle appears one-sided, but Zero suddenly remembers his past misfortunes, and he unleashes a powerful aura. The axe absorbs his misfortunes, and it becomes ridiculously massive. Zero swings his axe at Buddha, but Buddha stands his ground, activating his staff. The axe obliterates everything in the area, but Buddha's staff transformed into a shield, protecting him from the attack. Hilda reveals that Buddha's staff is a divine treasure, which contains the power of the 6 realm guardians in Buddhism, and it changes its form depending on Buddha's emotions. Buddha pushes the axe back, as Zero transforms it into a serrated sword. Buddha's weapon takes the form of a club, and it signals him to charge in, so he dashes at Zero, dodging his attack as he lands a hit. In a flashback, we learn that Buddha was born as a prince of a royal family in ancient India, and he had everything a man could ever wish for. One evening, his father the king tells him about his destiny to become the king of the world. He helps feed the people in his kingdom, telling them it's the duty of royalty to bring fortune to the people. One day, he meets up with his distant relative, King Jataka, and they talk about Buddha's destiny to become the king. Buddha thinks Jataka is happy because the kingdom is prosperous, but Jataka reveals that he isn't fortunate because he's suffering from a life-threatening disease, and his entire life, he has done nothing but serve the people, so he has no idea what the outside world is like. Jataka eventually passes away, and everyone mourns his death, thinking he lived a happy life, but Buddha knows this wasn't the case, and at that moment, Buddha thinks about his life, and how his fortune was given to him. He gets off his horse, and starts laughing, saying he has been enlightened. He goes to Jataka's funeral, where he throws flowers everywhere, and he takes Jataka's casket. Everyone condemns his behavior, but he doesn't care what they think, because Jataka doesn't need their prayers, saying true fortune is found within. He takes Jataka's remains to the river, where he leaves his casket floating, and he leaves everything behind to go on a journey into the wilderness. He finds a group of men trying to achieve enlightenment by starving themselves, and one of them has collapsed from hunger. Their leader claims that it's the only way to purify the mind, but Buddha gives the man some food, telling him to eat. The leader condemns his actions, but Buddha doesn't care, saying he wants to feed the man. The group starts following Buddha instead, and he teaches them to lie down and chill instead of starving themselves. One evening, a girl is about to be sacrificed to the gods, but Buddha saves her. The worshippers worry about the wrath of God, but Buddha tells them he would gladly fight the gods. Hilda notes that Buddha despises anyone who tries to force destiny on others or deprive them of inner happiness, so this is the reason he's fighting the gods. Zero twists his weapon, transforming it into 2 swords, while Buddha turns his divine treasure into a poleaxe. They proceed to exchange blows, but Buddha has the advantage with his precognition. Zero ends up getting slashed, but this just makes him angrier, as his weapon transforms once again. His blades approach Buddha, but Buddha's weapon takes the form of a knife, and he is able to destroy the blades. He manages to close the distance, and their weapons clash, as the crowd starts cheering for Buddha. Zero becomes upset nobody pays attention to him, just like in his past, and he suddenly extends his weapon, almost hitting Buddha. Buddha tells him he needs to love himself, but Zero calls it nonsense, trying to attack him. Buddha claims he has taken a liking to him. Zero thinks he's lying, but he looks at Buddha and sees the sincere look on his face. This makes him realize that he just wanted to be like Buddha, who is loved by everyone, as his weapon slowly loses power. Buddha throws his weapon away, saying he wants to fight hand to hand. They start fighting each other, as Zero realizes that Buddha is the one who understands him the most, finally feeling happy, as Buddha knocks him down with a punch. The crowd cheers for Buddha, and Zero's misfortune leaves his body, allowing him to return to his true form, wanting to make people happy again. However, his horns suddenly return to his head, causing him pain, and 2 dragons come out of his body. They encircle him, forming a sphere, and a massive demon emerges from it. Buddha jumps away, unable to read its movements, and he wonders what's going on. The demon explains that Zero is no more, and he introduces himself as Papayas, the Demon King. Buddha wonders what he wants, and Papayas isn't sure, but says he wants to test out his power. Ares asks Hermes about Papayas, but even he doesn't know anything. Hades suddenly joins them, saying Papayas isn't a god, as Ares quickly gives up his chair for him. Hades reveals that Papayas is a legendary berserker from the underworld, which is where the damned run rampant. He tells them that despite being the king of the underworld, he has never seen Papayas before, and he wonders why a god would turn into him. Buddha starts fighting with Papayas, but it seems he can no longer predict his movements. Hilda notes that Buddha's eyes allow him to see the flickers of the soul, which moves before the body, but Papayas' soul is total darkness, so he can't see anything. Papayas decides to fight with his full power, flexing his arm as he turns his weapon into a drill. He charges at Buddha, who tries to defend with his shield, but the drill penetrates right through, taking out Buddha's eye. Papayas is impressed he was able to dodge the attack, because he was aiming for the head. He transforms his arm into an axe, and he continues his assault. They continue to exchange blows, and Buddha ends up taking another hit. Ares wonders how Papayas is so strong, and Hades states that no ordinary god can hold a candle to him. He reveals that Papayas once destroyed half of the underworld, and the destruction only stopped because he suddenly vanished. This occurred centuries ago, long before Hades became the king, and he never believed that story. He thinks Papayas is there because someone must have obtained a fragment of him and created something like a seed, which was then planted on Zero. Ares wonders who would do such a thing, and Hades thinks there's only one god who would enjoy such a thing. Hermes knows he's talking about Beelzebub, who would have done it just to see what would happen, saying anyone could have been the vessel. Buddha tries to counterattack, but he gets stabbed in the foot. He falls back, but his injuries are starting to take a toll on him. He calls on Zero, thinking he's still somewhere inside, but Papayas laughs, saying he has already consumed Zero and turned him into nourishment. Buddha declares he will kill Papayas, as he feels hatred for the first time in centuries, causing his weapon to transform into a scythe. Papayas is unfazed, eager to take him on, and Buddha strikes first, but Papayas manages to block his attack. Buddha pushes him back, creating an opening, and his scythe expels fire to boost his speed as he tries to finish him off. However, Papayas ends up blocking it with his arm, and Buddha is the one who gets stabbed. Papayas wonders if he has any last words, but Buddha gets closer, saying he'll be the one to save mankind. Papayas finds him dangerous, kicking him away, and Buddha is badly injured, but he refuses to give up, calling Papayas a chicken. Papayas tells him to know his place, saying he has become a supreme being, because unlike before, when his body couldn't handle his strength, he now has a stronger vessel, so he's confident in his power. Buddha calls him weak, saying that he is even weaker than Zero. Papayas charges at him, telling him to prove it as he launches an assault on Buddha. Ares wonders if this is the end of Buddha, but Hades tells him to look at Buddha's eye because he still hasn't given up, and Zeus knows he's just waiting for a chance to turn the tables. Buddha gets knocked back, but he stays on his feet, and Papayas wonders how he's still standing. Buddha tells him to bring it on, which scares Papayas as his hands start shaking. He refuses to accept this, ripping off his arm to conquer his fear, and he turns it into a sword. Buddha charges with his scythe, but Papayas counters with his own skill, breaking the scythe. The weapon returns to its original form, and Papayas rushes at him, ultimately destroying Buddha's staff. It looks like the end for Buddha, and Papayas goes in for the kill, but at that moment, he gets a vision where he sees light behind him. As he reaches out to it, there's a hand that grabs onto him. Buddha regains consciousness, and he suddenly starts laughing. Papayas thinks he has lost his mind, but as Buddha gets back up, he says he has overcome his immaturity. His hairband breaks, causing him to take on a new appearance, and he takes Zero's weapon, telling Zero they will fight together, as he activates the Volundar technique. Hilda cries as she realizes the weapon is absorbing Buddha's love instead of misfortune, turning it into a new divine treasure. The weapon takes the form of a strange sword, and it has the power of the 7 gods of fortune. Buddha goes toe-to-toe with Papayas, and humanity cheers for him with everything they have. Their desires flow into him, giving him strength, as Papayas wonders how he can keep fighting despite his condition. Buddha parries his attack, and they both land an attack on each other. Kojiro thinks the odds are against Buddha because he has just taken too much damage. Papayas attacks with his skill, damaging Buddha as he blocks it, but Buddha manages to parry, creating an opening, and he lands a counterattack. Papayas can't believe his strongest attack was stopped, but we see the gods saying that Buddha won't be able to block the attack again. However, Hades says he just needs to dodge. We see Papayas launching a barrage of attacks, but it seems Buddha can now dodge. Because of Papayas' fear, Buddha can now see the flickers of his soul, allowing him to dodge the attacks. Papayas becomes frustrated, unable to land a hit, so he uses his ultimate skill, slicing Buddha in half. Everyone is shocked seeing this, and Papayas thinks he has finally won, but Buddha's body disappears, and he reappears behind him. He lands a decisive blow, slicing Papayas into pieces, as humanity celebrates the victory. Papayas refuses to accept defeat, trying to attack Buddha, but before he can hit him, his soul shatters. Buddha sees Zero's soul smiling at him as he joins the 7 gods of fortune, ascending to the sky, and Buddha says farewell to him. Buddha is announced as the winner of the match, and humanity cheers for him as he leaves the arena. Hilda and Gaul rush to him, celebrating his victory, but he suddenly collapses from his injuries. He receives medical attention, and he reminds Hilda not to be so serious all the time. Meanwhile, the gods realize that the score is even once again, so Zeus says they must win the next match no matter what. Hades volunteers to fight, shocking them all, but he says he will avenge his brother Poseidon. Gaul freaks out as she learns about this, saying there's no human that can defeat Hades. Hilda selects humanity's next hero, saying there's only one man capable of going against the king of the underworld, and she reveals that that person is none other than mankind's first king. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.